Morning, Neil Francois. Morning, Sir Kathleen Key. Morning. Still morning, yeah. Oh, almost afternoon. Thank you so much, Neil, for your vote of confidence, and thank you for your vote in advance for tomorrow. So just jumping on for a little bit. It's been a while. Deborah Duranty, morning, Deborah. Vivian Nicholas, morning. Debbie D, morning to you. Gerald Pascal Manswell, morning, sir. Thank you so much. Lynette Harris, morning to you. Jennifer Ferron, morning, Jennifer. Leon Graves, morning, sir. Jacqueline Phillips, morning to you. Arthur Lucian James, good morning. Lister Sydney, morning, Lister. Kevin Springer, morning. So as I said, I'm just jumping on for a little bit. Tomorrow being the internal election. And so I just wanted to touch on that. So to let folks know, the polling station for Malabar Mausika would be located at what we call the Red House on the corner of Banyan and Alamanda Street in Malabar, which is the street with the Malabar police station. So as soon as you swing into Banyan from the main road, you just head up a little bit and you will see on the first corner on your left you'll see a red building, which is the Red House, which was my campaign office, and that is where the polling station is going to be. Jonathan Carr, good morning. Marilyn McAllister, morning to you. My chosen Grace, good morning. Andy, good morning to you as well. Yeah, so there are 15 positions up for challenge tomorrow, folks. The executive comprises of 16 members, but of course, as we know, the position of political leader is unopposed, so that position has already been decided. So there will only be 15 ballots in the ballot book and not 16, and you are not obligated to vote for all 15, right? Some people have called me and indicated they're only going to vote for one position, which is that of social media officer, but I want to encourage people to vote for as many as you can. You still have some time to familiarize yourself with some of the candidates. There are several platforms that are available so to do. I know Pastor Google would have interviewed quite a few of the candidates on his Constructive Talk platform. So I think you could go on YouTube, type in Constructive Talk with Pastor Google, and you'll be able to go back and see some of the candidates who he would have interviewed. You see, boy. I know that the one PNM team, that they too would have been having meetings in several places. So it's available, I think, on YouTube and Facebook as well. So you could go and check them out too. There's 51 candidates offering themselves. So make your choice. 51 candidates, 15 positions. Please go out tomorrow. I saw a newspaper article today stating that the PNM has 100,200 registered members. That's significant. Right? So it would be terrible if out of such a large number of members, we have a small voter turnout. Remember, in 2022, we had less than 10,000 persons casting their ballots, despite the fact that there were 3 days of voting. 3 days, 2 days, and then we had the convention. And that was the turnout. I suspect that the turnout may be low, so that is why I'm making a special appeal this morning for persons to go out. Cast your ballot, please. And at least let's have a show of numbers. As I told you all before, the government is looking for distractions right now. They're desperately in need of distractions because the public's patience with them is wearing thin based on the promises that they would have made and their inability to satisfy or fulfill some of those. So Debbie D is asking, where is the voters list? How would I know if I can? Debbie, tell me which constituency you're from, and I could just check with a member of the team, and they would be able to tell me where the list is. So I know for my constituency, the list is available at the Red House, where the voting is going to take place. The list is there, so you can find out. So if it is that you're unable to go in person, just let me know which constituency, and I could contact somebody from there, and they can probably reach out to you, and they could check on your behalf to let you know if your name is in fact on the list. All right. So I know there's a final list which candidates have been asked to come and collect at Balize House today. So so that's what it is right now. Jennifer Ferron is asking, is it true that they are going to bring back the whole $100 bill? So I don't have information on that, Jennifer, but I would not be surprised if they do. This is a very populist government. That's how they govern. They do things that they think the population, that is going to win them support from the population. And bringing back those $100 notes certainly will earn them some plaudits, some members of the population. In particular, those persons who would have had significant sums of those $100 bills, $20 bills, and so on, carted away wherever, and looking for that opportunity. And I'm sure that there will be persons who are egging them on to do it. So I would not be surprised in the least, especially given the fact that Mr. Tanku has instructed the central bank to put a hold on the printing of new notes with the new coat of arms. Right? So they are in charge, as they constantly remind us in the parliament now. We are an opposition, and the population voted us out. And as Kamala told us, when we had the debate on the repeal of the Revenue Authority bill, as she said, we will pass this bill with or without your support, but we don't need your support. Right? We don't need all your support. So whether all you like it or don't like it, we couldn't care less. All right. We have the numbers. We have 26 plus the 2 from Tobago, 28. So we could do what we want, and we really don't need all. In fact, she didn't say this, but her tone and her words suggest, well, right now, all just a nuisance in the parliament, So we're just tolerating all it. But they would do well to be reminded that the 13 of us represent over 224,000 voters in this country. And when you do the average, right? When you do the average of how many persons each one of the 13 of us represent, you're looking at close to 17,000 persons, as opposed to them with the 26 or the 28 with 350 something thousand votes they represented. Each one of them represents about 13,000 persons or so. So each one of us on the opposition bench, we speak for more people. When we rise to our feet, we speak for more persons than each one of them does when they get. So they need to check themselves with that. I can tell you the level of disrespect that we have to face in our house. Sometimes, those of you all who are watching, you all don't hear it, but it is so annoying. There are times when I feel to just pack up my bag and get up and walk out of the chamber, because it's like they didn't get the memo that they win. They in charge. You all are the government. But at every turn, you get up to say something. Sit down, hush your mouth. You speak on his legs. I mean, Michelle Benjamin on Wednesday, she was ridiculous. As I was telling Birchwood, we need to go to the restroom and bring a roll of toilet paper and hand it to her. Right? The kind of brown nosing that she doing for Kamala. Grab the mic. Remember for Separia? She took all the licks, right? She took all the insults, and she led from in front, and if you see the kind of wajang behavior coming from this individual. And it's like they seem to forget that it's not only UNC voters in your constituency. The UNC voters put you in office, but at the end of the day, as a member of parliament, you have to represent UNC and PNM and NTA and Patriotic Front, everybody in your constituency, you have to represent. And persons who support other parties must not feel intimidated to come to you as the member of parliament to treat with their issues because of how you behave in the parliament and the things that you say about the People's National Movement. And that is why I am mindful of the things that I say here. As I said before, the terms that I would have used before to describe persons who support the UNC, terms like fully done and stuff, I can't do that anymore. Right? Because as member of parliament, persons who support the UNC will come to my office for assistance. And I can't turn them away. I can't say, no, is PNM put me here, so I only deal with PNM people. It doesn't work that way. All right? Debbie is saying they are so ghetto in the parliament. I'm glad the PNM bench is keeping their professionalism. Sometimes, Debbie, it's difficult for us to do so. Right? Very, very difficult for us to do so. Right? But we try. We try. And it's only week 7. Week 7. So we still have a lot of weeks to go. And I hear people saying, well, they may not last and they don't think they will last 5 years. Trust me, they're going down to the wire like they did last time, 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. And it will be more than that this time because remember, they took 3 additional weeks before they called the parliament. So the timeline in terms of when the next election is supposed to be called, that timeline would have started from the 23rd of May when the parliament was first convened. So that time between the 3rd of May when the cabinet was sworn into the 23rd, and even before that, because cabinet took a little longer. Normally, the prime minister would have been sworn in on the Wednesday. She was sworn in on the Thursday. But nevertheless, that period, that 3 weeks there, that's an extra 3 weeks that they took. What have they done? What have they delivered in the 7 weeks since they've been there? All they come to talk about is what the last government do, and the last government did this and they did that. Come in and talk about who had bus route pass and who was benefiting from state housing and all that kind of nonsense. Things that the people really couldn't care less about. You came and you repealed the Revenue Authority bill. Okay. We argued against it. My argument was, one, a lot of money has been spent on the Revenue Authority in the last couple of years. Money was spent to set up the Revenue Authority. Money was spent to recruit staff. Staff had already started to get paid. Office space was rented, leased to house the Revenue Authority. All of this is money that was spent. And then there was a ton of money that was also spent in litigation because remember there were persons from the PSA who took the government to court to try and stop the rollout of the Revenue Authority, all the way up to the Privy Council. So all that is money that was spent, your taxpayers' money that was spent for all of these things. And in one fell swoop, these people came and repealed the Revenue Authority Act. And all that money gone down the drain. But every opportunity that they get in the parliament talking about how they're so concerned about taxpayers' money and wastage and all kind of foolishness. But you all start off on the wrong foot. Wastage, that was wastage. All that money that was spent on that and the other things that are to come. Same thing with the property tax. I made the point that when I was campaigning, many people in my constituency said to me, listen, I don't have a problem with the property tax. I don't have a problem paying it. It is not extraneous as some people make it out to be. Some people paying $600 and something for the year. They don't mind. And all they're saying, listen, I just want to see value for my money. Because they understand, and as I've told you all before, when you pay a property tax, it gives you further leverage to be able to demand from your representatives, whether it's your parliamentary representative or whether it is your local government representative, to demand that things get done in your constituency. If you have a pothole, you could demand that it fixed because you're paying your property tax for that. If you're not getting water, complain. Property tax paying, everything that local government is responsible for, you could demand more now that they do their job. But they want to do away with it. So getting rid of revenue sources, but not telling you how they're going to generate revenue. And all they're telling us on the other side, and all they want to know where we get the revenue from, don't worry, we will get it. Get it from where? They already started to borrow. Borrow from here, borrow from there, withdraw money from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Every time the PNM withdrew from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, we knew about it because they were crowing. But they're taking money and they're quiet. They have nothing to say, but don't worry. We will make it. We will inform you all when these things happen, when they make these withdrawals, because they cost the PNM for 10 years. Oh, the PNM raiding the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. 7 weeks in office and they already started. Union, the labor, why these people joking? I listened to some of them on Thursday, right? Kamala there, Papi showing herself, first prime minister to mount a labor platform. She's feeling good. And Mr. Anizet already started. I saw an article in today's newspaper where he's complaining about the lack of diversity in terms of the appointment of boards, both from an ethnic perspective and the lack of union representation on some of these boards. But the man spoke truth to power. When you look at the ethnic composition of some of these, a lot of these boards that they've appointed, the persons appointed are predominantly of East Indian descent. It is their choice so to do. Right? They have to, at the end of the day, they have to appoint who is available to them. And a lot of these appointees that you're seeing on some of these boards are rewards for monies that was given to them to fund the election campaign. A lot of these board positions were purchased through campaign financing. They talk a lot about campaign finance and campaign finance legislation. Let's see if they're going to bring any campaign finance legislation to the Parliament. That didn't feature prominently at all on as part of their package of election promises. It didn't. But let's see if they bring it. They talked a lot. They accused the last administration of watering down the procurement legislation. That the legislation that they brought in 2013 was strong, and this last administration tinkered with it, and they removed this and they removed that, and now the legislation is watered down and it ain't worth nothing. But yet still, they came to the Parliament, and this exercise that we will complete on Monday is to give them approval to spend $76 million, for instance, to procure 18,000 laptops using the same, as they call it, flawed, the same watered down legislation that they complained bitterly about for the last couple of years. You all brought legislation to repeal the Revenue Authority Act. You tabled on the order paper, you bring in an amendment bill to deny Stuart Young his prime ministerial pension. So you're going to amend the Pensions Act, the Prime Minister's Pension Act. You're going to amend that. But we haven't seen it. We haven't seen the bill. All they did was list it on the order paper to be debated. They will decide when the debate will happen. But it is there. We have been given notice. So we're now waiting for the amendments so that we could go through it to prepare. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they drop those amendments on us 1 or 2 days before the debate is scheduled to take place. They used to complain, and when we complain now, they say, but all they used to do with that. Okay, if you all found that it was wrong, it was wrong. So why it is now, you're coming to do the same thing that you complained about. All right? Coming to tell us, don't complain, because the same thing all you used to do was, well, if it was an issue and you all had an issue with it and you felt it was wrong, why are you coming to do it again? So 2 wrongs make a right. But that is them. They're still suffering from never thought they would get back into office. And as I intend to make the point next week in my contribution to this debate, members opposite on the government side seems that they haven't gotten the memo that they win. Because as when you're in opposition, you can say things and you can say what you want, you could use whatever type of terminology that you want, because guess what? By and large, people don't listen much to you. That's a reality that we have to grapple with, because when we raise issues, their supporters and others will say that we just being obstructionists, that we just opposing for opposing's sake. I can tell you, I have no intentions of opposing for opposing's sake. All right? When I raise issues, I raise it because it is important. Case in point, the same issue with this laptop. When during the Standing Finance Committee, I asked the question of the Minister of Education, would internet connectivity devices be provided for these laptops? Further, does the ministry intend to incorporate the use of these laptops into the curriculum, into the syllabus, so that there is practical utility of these laptops in the classroom while class is going on? So the teacher, so if a student has the laptop out while the teacher is teaching, it is because the syllabus allows for that. They talked a lot about e-textbooks and all kind of thing, but they're asking for $20 million for book grant, which means there will be no e-textbooks in this upcoming school year. None. Right? They want $20 million for book grant and uniform grant. $20 million. Again, to make the point, so I asked the question. The Minister of Finance, I asked the question of the Minister of Education, but the Minister of Finance, Mr. Tanku, get vexed, he get upset, and want to dismiss me, saying, we are here to deal with an allocation to procure laptops, and the member from Malabar Mausika coming to ask about internet connectivity. And this is him coming to talk about internet connectivity and so on. So basically waving me off while telling the speaker that I wasn't speaking to you. I was speaking to the Minister of Education. Every question we asked the Minister of Education, can you tell us at what stage of the procurement process has this reached? We will provide you with that information at a later stage. Every single question that we asked Daulat, he don't have the answer for it. The technocrats in the ministry don't have the answer for it. The Minister of Finance don't have the answer for it. And all we're hearing, we'll provide it to you at a later stage. Is either that, or when we pose questions to the others, we will consider providing you with the information. And my colleague, the member for Port of Spain, for St. Anne's East, she asked the Speaker for clarification on that, because, Mr. Speaker, we are not getting commitments from these people that they're going to provide the information. All they keep saying is they will give consideration to it. So if you consider it and you decide, nah, we're not giving all of the information, you're not going to provide it. You never saw that in the last 10 years. When they ask for information, the ministers would say, we will provide it in writing. We will provide it in writing. So they gave a commitment, it would be provided. And once that commitment was given, the parliament would hold the members to the ministers to that. They're given, saying that they will give consideration to it. They give no commitment. So the parliament has no recourse to find out from them or to follow up on what is happening with this information, because they never said they're going to provide it. They simply said they would consider it. And the speaker gave a whole song and dance and a whole rigmarole and all of that about context and all the things that you have to take into consideration in terms of your ability to be able to provide the information. All kind, I mean, and I just sit down there in awe. We are asking questions not just on behalf of the 224,000 persons who voted for the PNM. We are asking questions for the wider Trinidad and Tobago who have interest in that. Because after I posed those two questions to the Minister of Education, several persons, teachers, in fact, messaged me to say they appreciated the question. And they too would like the answer. So I intend to put the question to the Minister again, because the Speaker told me perhaps you should consider posing that question in a different forum. What was it different forum? What is a different forum? If not the Parliament, where else you want me to pose the question? You want me to go down to the Minister of Education and ask him? So in my contribution next week, I intend to ask the Minister about that again. But of course, he's under no obligation to answer me if he speaks in the debate. No obligation whatsoever. That is what we have to put up with. Hubris and arrogance. 7 weeks. 7 weeks. Some of them like never see come see. The ministers, and all of a sudden, hey, thing. Only throwing us at a crosstalk. When I was making my contribution Friday last, not Friday, Friday before. I mean, I have my train of thought. I had all of my issues that I was going to speak on. And it's just constant crosstalk, and they just throw me off. Throw me off track completely. But that is not going to happen again. I focus on the speaker. Now let us see what they want. Vandana Mohit, Khadija Amin, Elda from Labre. All of them only yapping, we hush them out. But next week, we will deal with that. The debate continues on Monday at 10:30 a.m. So the debate concluded on Wednesday after Dr. Gasby Dolly spoke. So the next speaker will come from their side. So we will see how that goes. Another thing that is of great concern to me is that members on the opposite side, the government, who should know better, come into the parliament and making statements that are factually incorrect. And they ought to know that it's incorrect. And I intend to deal with that too. So I wouldn't speak of it here now, right? But tune in on Monday. I will not allow these acts of willful and deliberate misinformation to go unchallenged. We have enough of that outside the parliament. We will not allow it inside the parliament. So when they come with it, we will check them and make sure it is recorded on Hansard, what the truth is and what they said. Let the listening public and the viewing public see and hear what it is they are doing and how dishonest some of them are. Because I refuse to accept that they don't know. In fact, Saddam Hussein made 2 representations on Wednesday which were incorrect. And he ought to know he's an attorney at law. He's supposed to be adept, skilled in research. But you just come in the parliament and saying things, same thing, Tanku, coming and talking nonsense as well, saying things that are incorrect, that you should know as the Minister of Finance, you ought to know is incorrect. But time and place. They intend to come and talk about the Auditor General's report for 2023 and 2024 and all kind of things. I'm waiting for them. Lest they forget, the Auditor General didn't start publishing reports after the 7th of September 2015. As you all know, I have constantly referenced audit reports from 2010 to 2015. And to borrow a phrase from the former Prime Minister, it makes for very disturbing reading. So I'm waiting for them to open that Pandora's box. Let them go ahead, right? Let them go ahead. A lot will be said. This parliament here going to be totally different from what they are accustomed to. Dr. Rowley isn't there anymore. Mr. Hines isn't there anymore. Faris is no longer in the lower house. So some of the more prolific debaters are no longer in the lower house. So those of us new ones, we have a responsibility to rise to the occasion and pick up where those folks would have left off. And I, for one, definitely intend to do that. Right? Just making that point. So these are some of the things and it's still early days. Early days. So I was making the point I heard on the platform in Faizabad, Avocat. You have Felicia Thomas, the president of the PSA, talking about, they can't give the 10% in the mid-year review, but they're going to give it in September in the budget. Really? How? Again, maybe Felicia could tell us where the money is going to come from for that. Yeah, perhaps she can tell us. You see, Anizet, about a week or so ago, said, and it's in the newspaper, that negotiations for the 10% will start after the next budget. After. Which makes no sense to me, because if you start negotiations after the budget is read, then there would be no provisions in the budget to pay any 10% or to pay any back pay, unless they plan to come next year in the mid-year review to do that. So in order for Felicia to be correct and for them to get the 10% or more in the September-October budget, negotiations need to start now. You all need to arrive at a figure. So Mr. Tanku will know how much money he needs to budget for, allocate in the budget to pay you all your back pay. But just as they did the last time, they come and say 14%, left no money for back pay, no money for the recurrent expenditure with respect to the new salaries, and it fell upon this, or the former administration, the former PNM administration, to find the money to pay it. They had to go and borrow and beg and scrape to find the money to pay that. So all this stupid talk at Felicia come in with, we wait. With bated breath, don't worry. You see, and is that done start to make noise already? You have a problem with the composition of the boards? As I said earlier, in terms of the ethnic composition and also the lack of labor representation. You know what's jokey about that? 3 boards, TNTech, WASA, TSTT, fall under public utilities, right? The minister in the Ministry of Public Utilities is Clyde Elder, the member for Labray, right? Big on union representation. Gave us, when he spoke in the debate to repeal the TTRA, gave us a running tally, right? A long list of all how many people lost their jobs under the last administration and told us where. But you are the minister in the Ministry of Public Utilities. Where is the labor representation on the board of WASA? Where is labor representation on the board of TNTech? Where is labor representation on the board of TSTT? TSTT of all boards. Where TSTT, where he worked, TSTT from which he was fired and he was reinstated. Where is labor representation on that board? Who? Shame on you, Mr. Elder. Shame on you. It just goes to show. Clearly, you don't have the clout you thought you had. Yeah? Because they had the people line up. I was telling earlier many months ago, they already had the people jostling who want to be on what board and who want to be on which board, and they sit down on who wants to be ambassador to where. I told you all that. Those things were already they were horse trading. So that when they came into office, they already had the people. Look how quick they are appointing these boards. Where they getting these people from? Just pick up your phone on. So they already knew, they already made up their list already who was going to be where. So these union representatives and them who sitting in the parliament, well, they are not saying that. Well, they thought what? Well, they would have all their friends from Labour to go on these boards. Rock so with that. They already have the people in place already. If you get, say, you're lucky. If you get about 1 person on the board, but they hush, they quiet. And he said, saying, he ain't having that. He will speak out on it. And speak out he did. So it's that. 7 weeks. Let's see where that goes. Where is Mr. Roger? He came out from hibernation on Tuesday to give a speech and probably going to go back into hibernation. They went from, we will open the refinery, a new UNC government will open to the refinery, to now we're going to put together a committee to look at the possibility of reopening the refinery. When you're going to constitute this committee, what is the cost to the population of this committee? When you came into office and Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited, the parent company for the refinery, was in active negotiations with a Nigerian company to reopen the refinery. All right? The closest that we have come in the last 7 years to reopening the refinery. Consensus is that it does not make sense for the government of the day to be responsible for the refinery in terms of the outlay, the cost outlay to reopen it, which is a lot of money that we don't have, and then to run it. That is why Guyana, that has so much oil and so much crude oil running from opening their own refinery, the Guyanese government has made it abundantly clear they're not interested in owning any refinery. They will put out an RFP to invite the private sector to open a refinery, and they will assist by providing land, and they will assist with providing the oil for refining. But they want no ownership, no stake in that, because they don't want workers line up outside the refinery at any point in time, calling for pay raise and all of that, and the government has to deal with that headache. Similar to what would have obtained at Rhetoric in 2014, when they told the workers, what now? Can't give no pay raise, zero. And the workers were threatening, and the union were threatening to bring operations to a halt, prompting Kevin Ramnarine to issue that statement in December of 2014. Time to build up, not tear down Petrotrin. Pleading with the workers, whole strain. Well, all they're going to be hearing plenty whole strain in the coming weeks and months. Plenty of that, right? They don't have the money to spend like they did before, unless they plan to borrow. But they complained about the debt. The last administration was only borrowing and sending up the debt to GDP ratio and incurring debt that our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have to pay. Well, since you all plan to cut this and cut that, no property tax and cut all of these things, we will see where the money coming from. We ain't hearing that. Quiet, silent, right? They come to talk about the last administration under budget and under-resourced. Really, there's a reason why budgetary allocations are called draft estimates, not draft accurates, draft estimates. So what is allocated in the budget in September, October are estimates of expenditure, meaning it could be higher than what is required, or it could be lower than what is required. And where it is lower, when the finances permit, later on in the fiscal, you can come back and allocate monies as the money presents itself. Look at what is happening now with this war between Israel and Iraq that has caused oil prices to shoot up a bit and has provided the treasury with a little bit of a fillip. So now they have a little extra money available to them. Let's see what they're going to do with it. Right? Let us see what they're going to do with it. How long this war is going to drag out, we don't know. How much higher will energy prices go up? We don't know. But that is what happens. You make a projection in October in terms of expected revenue, but things could happen that could cause your revenue to fall. And you don't want to make commitments in October that you cannot keep later on because you thought you were going to get X amount of billions. And then as what would have obtained under the last administration, where the price of oil at one point in time fell to in a minus position. So oil was basically free. Oil was basically free, so you're not earning any money off of that. And that would have affected the government's finances. We had in 2020 COVID. Government didn't budget for that. When the budget was read in October of 2019, nobody expected that COVID was going to come and we had to shut down the economy and the government have to find money to provide income support grants and salary support grants and to provide rent support grants and all of these things that weren't budgeted for. Did they under budget? They had to come back and go to the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Did they under budget? No, because things happen. As somebody who sat on a state board, I could tell you how these things go. You have these boards that over budget. When they're doing their budgeting exercise to submit to their line ministry for transmission to the Ministry of Finance to get funding for whatever projects and so on that they have during the year. Thinking that, we better see how much we could get, yes, because we don't know. And so they make up things and all they inflate figures for a lot of stuff just to get the funding. They say that they want to do certain projects and then for some reason things happen, you get the funding, but unfortunately you weren't able to execute the project. And so the money just sitting there because you got it. But case in point, the National Trust, when we were looking to hire a CEO, we had put that in our budget to the ministry, and it was approved, the salary for the CEO. But what happened? Despite our best efforts, we were not able to attract persons who had the skill set that we were looking for with respect to serving as a CEO of the National Trust, one of which was a background in heritage. And that was a bit difficult. So yes, we got the funding to pay the salary for the CEO, but we weren't able to recruit a CEO. And so the money came, it sat down there. And this is what, it makes no sense that you budget for things and you get the funding for it and you don't know. So you do a preliminary in October, and then you come back in May, June, and you look at the situation, you assess the situation to see, well, okay, who had made budgetary requests for X amount, and they get the money, and they didn't carry out what it is they asked, what it is the money was supposed to treat with. So they just have the money sit down there. Or the allocation is there to be given to them, but it is clear that they're not going to use it in this fiscal. So maybe we could wire that money to another ministry that would have used up their budget. Another example coming out of this current debate on the supplementation bill. When Mr. Embut read the budget on the 30th of September last year, they didn't anticipate that they were going to have a state of emergency. But a state of emergency was called in January, thereabouts, and persons detained had to be fed. In addition to calling out the army and so on, monies had to be found to provide meals for these persons. So they came last week asking for $3.7 million to pay for food that would have been provided during the state of emergency. That is additional monies that weren't budgeted for in September last year because there was no state of emergency anticipated. But this thing came and happened. This expense was incurred, and therefore you have to come and ask some money for it. But they're making this big song and dance, but under budget and underfunded and frustrated and under-resourced. The ministries and frustrated the public servants because they weren't provided with the monies that they need for this and the monies that they need for that. And given the impression that the last government was so wicked, but one would take into consideration there are a number of ministries that didn't ask for any money. Ministry of the People and Social Development, formerly the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. They haven't asked for any additional monies. So they weren't underfunded. They weren't under budgeted. The Ministry of Trade, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, none of these ministries asked for any additional monies. So clearly they weren't underfunded. So is it that according to them, based on their representation, that Mr. Embut was selective in which ministries he underfunded? Just imagine. David Lee came on Wednesday to complain about the number of houses that were built under the HVIP program, which is the Home and Village Improvement Program. So as I told you, right, that is where the government builds homes for persons whose current accommodations is less than adequate. So people who live in a little shack all over the place, a one-room shack with 5, 6, 7, 10 people living in this one-room or two-room shack that's ready to collapse. They have a old outhouse, latrine outside, outdoor bathroom and so on, which is probably just a few pieces of galvanized and a piece of cloth and all of these things. And of course, true representation from your local government representative or your member of parliament, you can apply and the government would build a house for you. The budget was increased from $150,000 to $200,000 last year in September. But they like to say that the last administration didn't care about the poor and only concerned about the 1%. Mr. Lee, who is now the Minister of Housing, and I believe that the program falls under him, came to talk about the areas and the constituencies in which the majority of these HVIP houses were built. And he highlighted that the majority was built in PNM constituencies. And when you look at the UNC constituencies, like in Saparia, only 4 were built. In other constituencies, other UNC constituencies, you had 6, maybe you had 7. But in the PNM constituencies, you had 80-something by so on, 70-something by so on, 60-something. Why are you complaining? For the last 5 years, we kept hearing from them, PNM constituencies have the most amount of poverty, PNM constituencies have the most amount of crime, PNM constituencies have the worst infrastructure, PNM people have the most amount of criminals. That is what we were hearing. So the impression you all gave that UNC constituencies were doing fine, perfectly well. They needed nothing from the state. So don't come to complain now that the last administration would have focused that particular program in PNM constituencies when you all laid the platform for them to do so. So is it now that you're coming to complain? But if it is you all, as UNC members of parliament, fail to make representation on behalf of your constituents to get these, and the PNM MPs and the PNM councillors were doing their work, walking their constituencies, hearing the cries of the people, and putting in the request for these houses, and they were able to get it for their constituents or their burgesses. When I was walking during campaign, my councillors took me to several areas to show me. I got some too. We didn't mention my constituency, but especially in places like Samaru Village and so on, I would have seen quite a few of these HVIP homes. And the persons were very happy to receive when you look at what existed before. In fact, I would have spoken to a couple of persons who indicated to me that they would like to be beneficiaries of that program. And I told them we would work on it. Of course, we didn't expect to be out of office. And I wasn't certain if this administration would continue that particular program. But it seems as if they're going to continue it because, as Mr. Lee said, it was a laudable initiative. So I guess they're going to continue. So let me see now if they are going to be equitable and build in both PNM and UNC constituencies, rather than you're complaining about most of it was built in PNM constituencies, but they love to say PNM don't do nothing for their supporters. PNM supporters don't get nothing. They vote in PNM till they're dead. And that's the PNM. What the PNM do for you? They ain't give you nothing. But Mr. Lee came in the parliament and he debunked that foolishness. But you know what the UNC supporters will come and say, there's discrimination. So 1 minute they ain't doing anything for the supporters. And when your own UNC MP is telling you that the PNM did in fact do things for their supporters, or they're coming out to cry discrimination. You see, and I used to tell you all that any single time that the PNM tries to do anything to benefit their supporters specifically, the UNC always crying discrimination and running to the Equal Opportunities Commission and the courthouse to cry discrimination. And more often than not, they used to get through. More often than not, the courts would find in favor and say, yes, that was discrimination. They're complaining about that, about helping the poor. When they used to say the PNM don't do nothing for poor people. But there it is. David Lee came in the parliament and showed you all, demonstrated, called out the figures to show you that the government was in fact doing things for the poor people. That is why the Ministry of the People and Social Development, which is closest to the people, unlike the representation that Khadija Amin made on Wednesday, or not Wednesday, last week, Friday gone, before, when she was giving her 5-minute run-up because she had to speak, came to answer questions with respect to the allocations to her ministry. We had no questions for her, perhaps much to her disappointment. And she made the statement that her ministry, the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, is the ministry closest to the people. Really? I beg to differ. I would say the Ministry of Social Development is the ministry closest to the people. Because that ministry actually puts money in the hands of people to help them to pay their bills and to eat and to support their families. People care more about that, feeding their families and paying their bills and being able to eke out a living, than they care about cleaning the drain or patching the road. Give them the choice. But apparently Khadija didn't get the memo that her leader, the member for Siparia, the Prime Minister, does not hold her ministry in high regard. Let us not forget that when Faris was reassigned from the Office of the Attorney General to the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, Prasad Bisasa was interviewed by Ian Allen via telephone and asked to comment on that development. And what did she say? How the mighty have fallen. He went from landlord to labas. That when she was in local government is considered to be the ministry for rats, for drains, rats, and rodents. So Khadija, based on the utterances of your leader, you are in fact the minister of drains, rats, and rodents. Yeah, so pat down a little bit now. Pat down a little bit. That is the regard in which your leader holds local government. Yeah, so ease me up with that. But I was making the point that the Ministry of Social Development did not come to ask for any additional funding under this supplementation bill. None. Why is that? Ask a silly question. Because clearly, the amount of money that Mr. Imbert gave them in September was more than enough for them to last them for the entire year. He didn't underfund that ministry which is dedicated and focused on assisting the poor and the indigent. No underfunding there. So Vandana, I'm waiting to hear what she has to say. The Ministry of Youth Development no longer exists. Tanku had the audacity to come and tell us on Wednesday in his 55-page bullet point, big print presentation about the last administration neglected the youth. You for real, Mr. Tanku? Neglected the youth? You all have now relegated youth affairs. You all have gone back. Not what Mr. Wait is the MP for Point 14. Can't remember his name right now. Can't remember his name. But as he say, forward ever, backward never. But them gone backward. Youth affairs went from being a full ministry, a full-fledged ministry dedicated to youth, to once again being a subset of the Ministry of Sports, having to share resources with the Ministry of Sport when it was under a ministry that had its own budget, its own resources, focused on youth development, focused on creating young entrepreneurs, not creating employees as Pasad Bissessa wants to do, talking about we'll create 55,000 jobs. To date, all of these young people who were involved and who were enrolled in all of these programs, sitting in abeyance, sitting in a corner like little Jack Horner, wondering what next. Wondering what next. All those who would have been enrolled in the Youth and Agriculture, Homestead Youth and Agriculture program, right? Who close to graduation, looking forward to getting their 2 acres of land, looking forward to getting their $20,000 and their 2-bedroom starter home. Looking forward to that, they have no idea what is going to happen, whether or not that is going to continue, whether or not all the work that they would have put in for the last almost 2 years would come to naught. So all they would walk away with is a certificate at graduation, but no 2 acres of land, no $20,000, no 2-bedroom starter home, no farmer's license, no, none of these things that they were looking forward to start their business and to make a contribution towards the diversification of the economy through agriculture. No talk about that. But speaker after speaker will get up, bash the former administration, but nobody will talk about that. The young people want to know, they're asking the question, what happening? All of these programs, Hoist, Fuse, what's this other one? Can't remember. But quite a few, were 40 programs. The Shade House program in Tucker Valley, in Chagaramas, where the state would have provided facilities for these young people to put what they would have learned in agriculture into practical use. They're growing their crops down there and selling it and making money. They don't know what is going to happen. One would have thought they would have taken the opportunity to at least indicate. No talk about that. That ministry didn't ask for any supplementation either. So it is obvious they got enough money to do what they had to as well. So we will see how that goes. Yeah. But elections have consequences, as they kept saying. And soon enough, we will see what those consequences are as we proceed. All right? We will see what are their priorities. We don't know. You would think, thank you, Mikel. Ernesto Kesa, that's the name. Yeah, Kesa. Again, Point 14 and Labre. That were two of the PNM's strongest seats, now in the hands of the UNC. And we have to listen to Elder in the Parliament talk about Labre gone, UNC, Labre gone, UNC, really? So Jasudra Ramkalawan is saying Stuart Tong for the last 10 years said they were in training and all the programs were scrapped. Yes. So what's going to happen? All of these young people who were looking forward to starting a business and now will have to go to look for jobs. One of these 55,000 jobs that are yet to be created, right? Yet to be created. So Will the funding still be there for at least those who would have graduated and who may not have yet gotten their land and gotten their houses and so on? They could at least get some kind of funding to still start their business. Maybe lease a piece of land and buy a few sheep, some goats, some cows, something. Now, at least salvage something from the 2 years that they would have spent in UE. If it is, you're not going to continue with that program, because remember, Pasad Bissessa said their focus is going to be on land for the landless. And focus on homestead, land for the landless. You have land come, you get a piece of land to build a 2x4, and then later on you could graduate to a 10x10. That's what they're offering. So and as I always said, while the last administration was offering the young people of this country a deed of lease, the UNC is offering them a certificate of comfort, which is of no use. You can't take a certificate of comfort to the bank. You could take a deed of lease to the bank to get money. But that's what they're offering the young people. And this man has the temerity, the unmitigated gall to accuse the last administration of abandoning and neglecting the youth. Really, Mr. Tanku, what rock were you living under? What did you all hold out to the young people between 2010 to 2015? The ill-conceived, ill-fated live sport. Live sport, that's what you held out to them. Murder and mayhem. You all gave them hope of life and spent more money on the directors, spent more money to bring Shaquille O'Neal here, $10 million so he could lift up cameras so she could dunk a ball for a photo op. That $10 million could have gone into these communities. You gave them a first prize of $1 million, but Shaq get 10. You could have upped the ante and increased the prices so that this money could have gone into these communities and helped these people, but no. Everything was photo op. Now, talk about photo op. Talk about photo ops. Everything these ministers do, they posting it on social media, is videos after videos. Videos after videos, you know. They open a standpipe, you had to see a video. They turn sod, well, they start turning sod yet. They clean up a drain, it's videos. They decide to visit a state enterprise under them to meet the staff, is videos. Every little thing is video. Well, PNM might take licks for that. That's what they should have been doing. That's what we should have been doing. Right? The same thing. And then the population would have had a better idea of all the projects and all the things that you all did for the 10 years. And they would have made a decision. Rather than we doing things and hiding it under a bushel, people don't know, and saying, oh, the PNM do nothing and the PNM do nothing for 10 years. Felt justified in saying that because they weren't seeing things. Because if you're living in South, you ain't coming up in the North and in the East to see what is being done. And if you're living in the East, you ain't going down South to see what is being done. So unless the government of the day highlighted it to show you, using the platforms that were available to them, you wouldn't know. But the UNC has done absolutely nothing or precious little in the 7 weeks they've been in office so far. But everything, they go, you're seeing, all of a sudden, these corporations that fall under the UNC, that for the last 10 years, they didn't have money to do this, and they couldn't clean the drains, and they couldn't pave the roads because they didn't have money. All of a sudden, they have money to do that. I know what's interesting. These corporations that fall under the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, when you look at all of the subheads and all of the line items for which money was requested, Khadija didn't ask for any money to pay to clean drains. She didn't ask for any money to patch roads. No, they asked for money for that. So how is it now that these same UNC corporations that were telling you in the last 5 years and 10 years, the reason why the drain didn't clean is because the government didn't release the funds. And the reason why the road wasn't patched is because we didn't have no money. But all of a sudden, you're all doing these things now and you didn't ask for money to do it. So where the money came from? There is no allocation in this supplementation for that. So how will I find the money? Where? Because it was always there. But the intention was to make the government look bad and claim geographical discrimination, because work taking place in the PNM constituencies, but in the UNC constituencies, nothing happening because the government don't want to give them the money. The most amount of property taxes was paid in where? The UNC constituencies. Despite the fact that the leader told them, don't pay it. They went out and paid it though, because they understood the leverage that paying your property tax brings. So while they were all over social media and talking about property taxes and property, they went and lined up and paid. When you saw the list, the majority of the the monies that came from property taxes were generated from UNC constituencies. And this is the point we always make. They always try to chain up PNM people. Don't pay it, don't pay it. But them run and pay it, And then the people outside, when it is they see foreclosure because you didn't pay. The neighbor telling you, UNC neighbor telling you, boy, don't pay that, boy, I'm here paying that. That Rowley Holly so and so. We pay no more tax. As soon as he tell you that, he jump in the car and he go down by the revenue office and he pay his property tax. Coming back and telling you, boy, don't pay that. But then when foreclosure time, because you ain't pay, and he peeping through the window. I good, I pay mine. They may take in my house, but your neighbor, your PNM neighbor, chop it. Yeah, he take chain up. He take chain up. Right? And that is what we have to deal with. But again, I would remind members, the supporters of the other side, right? We lost the election by 15,080 votes. 15,080 votes across 9 constituencies. And if we minus the Hoketa Paro, where we had the biggest margin in terms of loss, all we needed was just over 11,800 votes to remain in government. We only needed 21 seats to remain in government. Right? So we could have afforded to lose one. If we were to take St. Joseph out of the equation, just a little over 12,000 votes is what we needed to remain in government. You take out San Fernando West, where Paris lost by just over 700 votes. We had more than that in San Fernando West. These people chose to stay home because they had an axe to grind with the party for whatever reason. And I am not saying that these reasons were illegitimate by any means. People were upset about certain things, certain decisions that the last administration made. They were well within their rights to be upset. I can't support their decision not to vote, right? I can't do that because what was the outcome? What was the benefit of that? So the PNM is no longer in power. The party that you support is no longer in power. And the party that is in power, not listening to you. They don't want to hear nothing that you have to say, right? So I said it's better you had kept the PNM in power and cost the PNM, use the mechanisms available to you to let them know how you feel and bring them to fix it. But instead, people chose to stay home. PNM is out of power for the next 5 years. And all who figure out talking about, well, I know the PNM needed a rest and they needed a little 5-year break. And you all feel that is that easy to get back into office? Really? You think it's that easy? The work, there's plenty work. And our numbers now is 13. We were able to do it in 2010 to 2015 because that administration did a lot of nonsense. A lot of nonsense that was able to assist. And we had a number of other entities at the time. You had the assistance of the ILP to be able to bring to the fore information. Mr. Warner would have spent a lot of money on the Sunshine Hour, 91.9 and all of that, which helped. So information that the PNM didn't have access to, that Mr. Warner had access to, with respect to live sport and all of the documents and so on that were critical and assisted. We don't have that this time. We don't have that, right? And whether or not we will have over the course of the next 5 years, persons willing to come forward and put things in mailbox so that we can highlight it. To understand 2010 to 2015 and 2025 to 2030, totally different. Totally different. And some of the things that Pasabi Sessa is doing and saying now is resonating with some people. She's talking about this time around, she's going to do things different, and the mistakes that she made the first time, she's not going to make those mistakes again and all of that. Now, when you read in newspapers, you have a lot of these media houses posting editorials, supporting the government and praising Tanku. Praising Tanku for what? For what? I am sitting in the parliament listening to Mr. Tanku and saying a Form 4 economics student could have done a better job than he's doing. But praising him. People writing letters to the editor and all kind of thing in the newspapers, they're happy to publish it. All of these academics, all of these economists who coming out and talking about, praise the minister for this and the prime minister for that, for taking this position and so on. But where were they before? Where were they when things were being done? Anyway, we'll leave that for the parliament. Not everything is the talk here. Okay? I just save some stuff for next week. So, Just Sodra Ramkilawan said is only Indian went and paid tax. But Kamla told these things, but didn't Kamla tell you all not to pay the tax? But you all went and paid it anyway in defiance of what she told you. Why did you ignore her advice? Why did you all ignore her advice? Is it that it was bad advice? So if she could give bad advice and you all could recognize bad advice and you still went and pay your property tax, even though she told all you, don't pay it. Her husband went and paid. She cussed him out. She said no refund for all you. No refund for all you. That if as just says it's only East Indians who went and paid the tax. And your leader, your beloved leader, is telling all you, don't pay. She told you all don't pay, and she said, I tell all you to damn hard. I told you all not to pay. And since all you went and paid, no refund for all you. You think they vexed with her? You think they're going to say she's disrespectful? No, they're continuing to support her. Come hell or high water. We don't care. Yes, she gave us bad advice. Yes, she put us in a position based on her advice where we could have lost our homes, but we don't care. That's all right. We're taking that bad advice and we're still supporting her. But PNM supporters, Rowley here 47%, and all you offering public servants is 4%. Can't vote for that. Not me, I am voting. Okay. Okay, all then learn from 86. How much chambers offered you all? 6%? Or listen now, we ain't with that. The chambers take that 6% and wine to decide. Only vote for the NAR, and what you got? You ain't get 6. You get minus 10. And you lost your cola too. Yeah, that's what you got. So buckle up. Wait for the next 5 years. All the promises that they made. Soon they're going to come with the legislation to make it easier for you to load up the Matic. Yeah. All they're calling is promise made, promise kept. Promise made, promise kept. Right now, the annual leakage, $10 billion in revenue is lost every year, estimated in tax evasion, tax avoidance. $10 billion. The PNM said we need to put the Revenue Authority in place so that we can treat with that. We're not saying that the Revenue Authority is a silver bullet. We're not saying that it's going to solve all of the issues, but it is a start. It is a start. A move in the right direction, and we will build on that. Because there are things that need to be fixed. Them come and say, no, we don't need to do that. We need to strengthen the Board of Inland Revenue, so we're getting rid of the Revenue Authority. So all the people, now the Revenue Authority was 30% filled out, right? So all those persons who are on contract, government had to pay them off because their contract was for a period of time. Now that the Revenue Authority is scrapped, they are now out of a job. So the government is going to have to find the money to pay these people, right? So that's basically money down the drain. So you're getting money for no work done. But they say when UNC wins, everybody wins. These people didn't win because now they're unemployed. And of course, the expectation was that notwithstanding the fact that they would have been on contract, that these contracts would have been renewed after the period, and that they would have had a job for a lengthy period of time, so that they could go and take a mortgage or take whatever it is, because depending on the period of the contract or what is the salary, but there was a reasonable expectation that they would have been employed for a while. Now, they're out of a job. And they have to get paid off. When the government going to pay them off, we don't know. So in the interim, while they're waiting for that payoff, how are the bills paying? The salary that they were getting monthly will cease. I didn't see any supplementation come from the Ministry of Finance. In fact, the Ministry of Finance didn't ask for any extra money in this supplementation. So the question is then, when are they going to get their money? Because the Minister of Finance didn't ask for any money to pay off any contracts for persons employed currently in the Revenue Authority. Maybe it might come in September. So if they send all your home at the end of this month, how are you paying your bills at the end of July, August, September? And who knows? We don't even know if he's going to make an allocation for it in September, whenever the budget is read and passed. Because the budget has to be passed by the end of October. Just now is Christmas. How are they making out? When UNC wins, Trinbago wins, everybody wins. Those people didn't win. We creating 55,000 jobs, but how many you're taking away? Now we start then, huh? You feel Mr. Elder going and talk about that? No, he gets up and put out a big presentation. The efforts, and if the same effort and the same resources and the same energy that they put into the Revenue Authority, they were to put it in the BIR, Mr. Speaker, then we don't need the Revenue Authority. You are a big union man and you are advocating for the loss of jobs by people who work in the Revenue Authority already. You're advocating for the loss of jobs by people who would have gotten employment in the Revenue Authority. You're advocating for that. Big union man like you who's supposed to be supporting labor, but behaving in a manner that is anti-labor. And so in the parliament talking rubbish, but you can't even get $200, 200 US in the bank to travel. Rubbish! You might not be able to get 200 in hard currency. But the people who have credit cards don't have that issue. I don't have that issue when I travel. Never had. So I don't even bother to go to the bank. I have told you before, you have your credit card. When you get to the US, find an ATM, and you could withdraw the US from your ATM. And you still have the use of your card if you need cash. You could do that. Instead of going in line up in the bank for them to tell you could only get 200 or 300 as the case may be. But let's see how soon that is going to change. All who complain is because of the PNM that happened, because the PNM shut down the refinery. That is why we have this problem with foreign exchange. So I expect within a month or two that you should be able to go to the bank and get whatever amount you want. Because that was a PNM problem. Is the PNM caused that? Is Rowley caused that? Is Stuart Chung and Coleman Bird caused that? Well, Keith Rowley is no longer there. Stuart Chung is no longer the Prime Minister. Imbert is no longer the Minister of Finance. And the people that you all put your faith in to fix it, they're in charge now. So let me see. So I don't expect 6 months from now to hear anybody who supported and who gave the support to the UNC complaining about you can't get 200 US. Rubbish. Don't come with that. They told you they had the solution to it. Let's see if they're going to fix it. Don't complain. We should not be seeing any bank in the future reducing the limits on credit, US limits on credit cards, because UNC going and fix all of that. When UNC wins, everybody wins. Everybody wins. But just remember, the refinery, which they blamed the shortage of forex on, the closure of the refinery, Owando was in active negotiations. Active negotiations. Right? Right now, Owando in Abia, they don't know what's happening. They just sit down there like, yeah, well, we negotiating or we not negotiating? Well, if they know by now, they should figure it out, because a committee is now going to be put in place, as they said, to look at. And first preference is going to be given to the UNC, not the UNC, sorry, the experiment between the Confederation of Business Chambers, I think it is, and the Patriotic Energies. They say they could get the money and they could get the funding. You have a man who stands accused. You have an entity, a business entity that stands accused of putting forward or submitting a fraudulent document purported to be a wire transfer receipt for 1.5 billion US. They pledged that document as part of their bid to secure state assets, to secure the assets of the refinery. And it has been shown that that document was fraudulent. Fraud. And yet still, you are still contemplating putting the refinery in the hands of that entity, led by that man. He has never given a sufficient explanation with respect to that. Never. Just try to dismiss it. Oh, that's not important. And the only concern that the current government had when they were in opposition with respect to that is how did the then Prime Minister come to be in possession of that information. They didn't care if the document was fraudulent or not. No, that wasn't of concern to them. They weren't concerned that this individual who they were getting into bed with might be a big fraudster who's supposed to make a jail. No, they weren't concerned about that. Their only concern is how Stuart Chung find out about that. That was supposed to be a transaction between TPHL and Scotiabank and whoever. So how that information came to the Minister of Energy, that was their only concern. Upholders of wrongdoing. But now they arm in arm with the same man who is yet to give an explanation. But they want lock up Rowley and lock up Imbert and lock up Stuart Chung, but don't lock up Roger. No. Persons have made jail for less. People trying to get into the police service and doctor their certificate to say that they get a 2 in maths instead of a 4. And simple things like that. 1 grade they try to change. And they get charged, arrested and charged, and before the courthouse. But this man, it is alleged, would have proffered a document purporting to be a receipt for $1.5 billion US. Wire transfer receipt. Turns out to be a fraud. And he's still walking the streets. We don't know the status of that investigation. Right? We don't know the status. And look how long that was. We don't know. But you see, when you're high up there and you're eating, yeah, you could get away with plenty. Get away with plenty. This administration should be held to book. That should have been bolted to the chest of Kamala Prasad-Bissessa. But instead, you contemplated doing business with this man. But only run Jindal. Jindal is a big criminal in India. He have charges before the court. We can't do no business with him because he's a criminal. But you're willing to do business with another man who should have charges against his name, who should be before the court for big fraud. You have no problem doing business with him, but you had a problem doing business with Jindal. Well, you run Sandals, you run Jindal, and now you want to run Oando too. Oh yeah, but you care about the country and the well-being of the country and be concerned about foreign direct investment. What signal are you sending to potential foreign investors? Trinidad is not a good place to invest, especially when you have the Minister of Finance. Every opportunity you get talking about, the last administration crashed the economy. The last administration crashed the economy, and it's up to us to fix it. But you haven't fixed it yet. The last administration left office less than 2 months ago. So if you say the economy crash, it's still in a crash state. And if it is in a crash state, no foreign investor wants to come and invest money in a crashed economy. You are the Minister of Finance. You're not supposed to be saying those things. You could say it in behind closed doors, but you can't be coming in the public and making such utterances. They keep forgetting they are in government. When you were in opposition, you could see them think nobody had to have a little study. Now you are the Minister of Finance and you keep talking that shop it up and expect people to rush to Trinidad and Tobago to invest when you basically telling them the state of our economy now is not one that is conducive to investment. But that's only Minister of Finance. When the UNC wins, everybody wins. Oh, the hookahs, yellow is the code. Yellow is the code. As they say, elections have consequences. And when you make the wrong choice, voting for them was a wrong choice, and choosing not to vote at all, withholding your votes from the PNM was also a wrong choice, as some people are coming to realize on a daily basis. And it's only been 7 weeks. So all who open for the 10%, I have heard there is a recommendation on the table and it's less than 10. And it is not one that would meet with the favor of the public service. No matter that the head of the Public Service Association now is going to try to spin it in a way to convince workers that it is something good. But we waited coming. I ain't gonna talk that talk here. But I am reliably informed of what is the first proposal that will come. And rest assured, it will not meet with the favor of public servants. So we will wait. We will wait. Folks, I did say that this was going to be a short live because I have some stuff to do. I had some stuff to do in preparation for the election tomorrow. We are required to have scrutineers at the polling stations across the country. So I have to go and deliver some authorization letters to some people so that they can represent me and some of the other candidates, the independent candidates from my constituency at the various polling stations. So, yeah. Patricia McKenzie said, don't forget, take your blasted rig and go. Don't forget. Of course, yes, I plan to raise that issue of the smelter in the parliament. Elections have consequences. Right? Elections have consequences. Public servants paid 6 billion plus. The PNM paid that. That is correct. The PNM had to find that money to pay that. That is what they inherited from them. A $6 billion debt owed to public servants. So when they want to come now and talk about the last 10 years,
Study what the last administration met in 2015 and what they had to grapple with in addition to the new issues that presented themselves. Declining oil revenues, declining production, trying to find ways and means to be able to encourage foreign direct investment in the energy sector. But not only that, the time and effort that they would have spent. Stuart Young doing shuttle work from Port of Spain, Washington, Caracas, to be able to negotiate the Dragon gas deal. And we were very, very close, but two election outcomes put a spoke in that wheel. The outcome in the US and the outcome here set us back. So we have to wait probably at least another 5 years, because Mr. Trump has 4 years, but even after he leaves, Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar will still be in office for at least another year. And she has made the declaration, Dragon gas dead. So long as the UNC is in power, they will not engage in any negotiations with Venezuela so long as Nicolas Maduro is there. And Mr. Maduro was elected for an additional 6 years, starting this year. So he is supposed to be there at least till 2031. All right? So once they're in power, I told you all, Dragon is dead. So she say, it's not dead. It's just in stasis. It's on life support. And it will remain there until the good citizens of this country get back common sense and do the right thing whenever the next election is called. Of course, it means that we have to start the process all over again. And it depends on who is in power in Washington as well. Because now you have to go and engage new people. Because while we would have engaged Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, their administration, we don't know who's going to be in power come 2029, January 20th, 2029. And so you have to start over that whole process of negotiations, which cannot start until 2030 at the earliest, which is when the next general election is due. So the 98,000 of you who supported the PNM in 2020 and chose to withhold your vote from the PNM in 2025, hopefully in 2030. So let's say get the PNM arrest. The PNM need 5 years in opposition to get the act together. Okay, well, you all give us the 5 years. What we gonna do? Just have to go with the flow. All right? And in the meantime, we keep telling you all that this 5 years, they're going to do things that would make it even more difficult. So we might be lucky if we get Dragon by 2035, when we should have been enjoying 8 years of Dragon gas and the economic rewards and the economic rents from Dragon gas from 2 years from now. 2 years from now, we might have to wait 10, if assuming you all make the right decision in 2030. And if you make the wrong decision in 2030, we might have to wait until 2040 to see gas, when we should have been enjoying 13 years of Dragon gas. We now looking to enjoy 2040. Some of you all might know listening now mightn't even be here. And I keep making the point. If Kevin Ramnarine had done what Stuart Young had done when he was Minister of Energy, when there were no sanctions on Venezuela, when they had no issues with Venezuela, when Kamala Prasad-Bissessar sat down right next to Mr. Maduro and thanked her for reminding him about some position that the US government had taken that was anti-Venezuela or whatever it is. When they were good, when they were bosom buddies, they were still good. If then, at that time, Mr. Ramnarine had done the work that Stuart Young had done, when they were still like ring on finger, Dragon gas would have been flowing probably since 2017, 2018. Since then, for the last 7 years, we would have been reaping the benefits. We would not have had budget deficits. The government would not have had recourse to increase the price of fuel. We wouldn't be having issues with respect to the shortage of foreign exchange. And who knows, coming out of that, what Stuart Young should have been negotiating is not Dragon. What Stuart Young should have been negotiating is not Laura and Manatee. Stuart Young should have been negotiating for some other fields in the Mariscal Sucre region, trying to get some more of the 200 trillion cubic feet of gas that is in that Mariscal Sucre region. That is what he should have been doing. The time that he spent on Manatee and Loran and Dragon, Ramnarayan should have done that. Save us that problem. So we should not have been talking that talk now. We should have been talking 2 or 3 of the other fields in that region. They keep talking about Trinidad should have been like Dubai. But we never had the level of oil production that Dubai had. And when our oil production was in its heyday, the price of oil was $9 and $10. When Dubai came on the scene, it was all kind of $30, $40, and $50. So they benefited more. At that time, our production was already in decline. Ghana's 675,000 barrels of oil per day. Trinidad never had that kind of production. And still, how has Guyana benefited? ExxonMobil taking the majority, the lion's share of the profits of the economic rents from that. But that's what we're faced with. But that is when you make the wrong choice. If the right choice had been made in 2010, Dragon gas would have been flowing a long time. Loran Manatee gas would have been flowing a long time. And we would have probably had 3 or 4 other fields whose gas was flowing. And Trinidad should have been prosperous. No issues with forex shortage. No issues with budget deficits. All of those things. You should have been riding high. But no. We say, nah, the PNM need a rest. Give them 5 years. Well, we get the 5 years, and what was the outcome? Well, let's say, nah, they get two consecutive terms, then we get them another rest. And every time you choose to give the PNM a rest, you set the country's economic fortunes back at least 10 years. So nothing is going to be done over the course of the next 5 years with respect to Dragon. When all of the stars were in alignment for Dragon to come to fruition. We had the right administration in the US, and we had the right administration here. Now everything out of whack. Forget that. I'm talking about Suriname gas and Grenada gas, and let's know we might hear about Barbados gas and Jamaica gas too. No plan. No plan whatsoever. How to deal with that. So now the focus is on diversification. We had to diversify the economy. Which sectors we going to focus on? Only a set of platitudes and we'll talk, but nothing. Nothing being done. Right? Nothing is being done. And I see with respect to the EMBD matter that has so let me see if I get this here. Right? That case with respect to the EMBD involving Rudal Munilal. See here. Yeah. So the case was not allowed to proceed last week because there was no EMBD board in place to give instructions to the attorneys as to how to proceed, much to the annoyance and the chagrin of the judge, Justice Frank C. Prasad, who previously indicated that this particular matter is the oldest one on his docket, and he is anxious to get rid of it. It is not in his what we are looking for, boy. Right? It's not a normal thing for him to have a case languishing in his docket for so long. So he wants to dispense with this matter as quickly as possible. The matter was called, Mr. Munilal didn't show up, and it was raised in the parliament by, I can't remember if it was Stuart Chung that raised the matter, or if it was Coleman Burt. Said the minister didn't show, he didn't present himself. And he rocked back and he laughed. Munilal, that is. My lawyer didn't tell me. Yeah. Because remember Mr. Himbert, when he gave his explanation with respect to the matter involving, when he got up in the parliament and he said that the issue of the lawsuit involving the BIR employee was sub judice, and they came and they decided that they wanted to bring a motion of privilege against him for misleading the House. And in his explanation, he would have indicated he was not aware that the case had been, that the appeal had been thrown out. It was not told to him. And in fact, the attorney who had responsibility for the case sent him a letter outlining, indicating to the parliament that she did not inform him that the matter had been thrown out. She told about how she was negligent in terms of and tardy in terms of submitting the documents required by the court in order to facilitate the appeal and so on. And he came with that. So Munilal joking, my lawyer didn't tell me that the matter had been called. That's a big joke for him. But now the matter is in abeyance, right? It is in jeopardy of being dismissed because, one, there was no board to give instruction. And on the very same day, they quick, they run and put a board, right? Because now EMBD is under agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture. So they run quick and they put together a board. So it is now in the hands of this new board to decide whether or not they're going to proceed with this civil suit or whether or not they're going to instruct their attorneys to withdraw, right? So here it is that the state is facing a claim by these contractors that they were owed $400 million. $400 million owed by the state. Okay? Now, if it is they withdraw the matter, then it means that the state concedes that we owe these contractors $400 million, that their claims are legitimate, and therefore the state has to find $400 million to pay these contractors. A lot of citizens have had a keen interest to see where this matter will go. So it is left up to the new board to sit and deliberate. Do we go forward? Because it's a civil suit. It's not a criminal matter, right? So they have the wherewithal to withdraw the case, and that's the end of that. And Munilal and these contractors have no case to answer. The state will find the $400 million and pay these contractors. Otherwise, they will sue the state to say, well, the matter was withdrawn. There is no argument that we are owed this money. We want our money. And then we're going through that. Pay the money. Find the $400 million and pay it. Yeah. All the taxpayers' money jumping up. Money that could rock back in the parliament and put back his head so and take a little rest, as he loves to do. He can do that. Because why? Elections have consequences. And when we only focus, we have a narrow, myopic focus on only one issue, rather than looking at the bigger picture. Rowley here 47%. I don't want to hear nothing else. I don't care about any EMBD case that could be thrown out. I don't care about the Miami case against Steve Ferguson, where the state stands to get the taxpayers stand to get at least $1 billion in restitution. I couldn't care less about that. All I focus on, Rowley getting 47% and you offering me 4%. And because of that, I vote in yellow. Because of that, I ain't voting. That's all I focus on. Okay. You withheld your vote, or you voted yellow, they're in office. Now these cases are at risk. That is money that could have come to the state, that could have assisted in paying you a little more than the 4%, but you didn't care. You didn't care. I don't care about that. I am laser focused. Rowley get 47%. Rowley get 47%. Rowley get 47%. When Rowley didn't get 47%. Rowley got 28%. I've already explained that 28%. But you're so focused on Rowley 47%, you didn't realize that Kamla gets 72%. Now, last I checked, 72 is more than 47%. But she, as opposition leader, got a 72% pay raise. From $29,000 a month to almost $60,000 a month. Almost. From 29 to 53 or something like that. Yeah? 72% pay raise she got. But nobody talking about that. Rowley get 47. Rowley get 47. And meanwhile, Kamla laughing. They vex with Rowley because he get 47. I get 72. And nobody realized that. So they are voting for Rowley. Right? They're voting for me. So I go and get my back pay on my 72. I'm talking about Rowley getting $1 million in back pay. But they're studying my back pay, how much my back pay is. Yeah, but let me focus. And let us keep the focus on Rowley and talk about the 47. But meanwhile, they come to the parliament to the same supplementation to request money to get their back pay. As Colin Wood pointed out to them. Is the member saying he's not aware that this request for supplementation is to pay the members of the government, then opposition, their back pay? They want it. We don't want it. We don't want the increase. We say we don't want it. We don't support it. But one of the first acts that you did within 7 weeks, less than 2 months of coming into office, you come to the parliament for a supplementation to get the back pay for this from the same increase you say you didn't want, that you were not interested in. You want your back pay. They're not willing to wait until September, October, when the substantive budget is read. No, we want it now. But Rowley say he don't like his money to sleep out. He want his money now. He work for his money. No talk about 10%. No talk about back pay for public servants. But they come to the parliament to bring a motion for supplementation so they could get their back pay that they didn't want. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Right? The longer they take to talk about the 10%, all you went on advocate and clapping cam like, yes. Back pay. Millions in back pay coming. Them going to get. So once that debate is concluded, and most likely on Monday, I hope they don't keep us there until 2 o'clock the next morning like they did the other day. Hope they don't do that. They're going to get a back pay. Right? If they didn't get this month end, they'll get it next month end. Meanwhile, they're still hoping and wondering when negotiations will start for the 10% so that you all could get your back pay. Just remember, you'll be paying less taxes on your back pay because Keith Rowley increased your personal allowance 3 times. Kamala didn't do that. Keith Rowley did that. So when the back pay does come eventually, if and when it does come, just remember, you're not going to be paying as much tax as you would have between 2010 to 2015 when your personal allowance was 60,000, right? Now it's 90,000. So just pay a thought for Keith and the PNM when you see the amount you get, right? Just pay a thought for them. And just know when they get it back pay, I go come back and tell all you. All you know. That's we'll find out. Hey, they get it, you know. And then the small money that all you getting. Attend that. Big money. Plenty money. Money. Yeah, singing Francine say, I want big money. Tell them, making sure they get a big money. They ain't waiting. All they will wait. I could take 1 or 2 calls. Karen Spooder says the USA should take everything. Of course. And they plan to. Yeah, they want the money. I'm watching to see who going to upgrade the Prado and the Fortuna and the Mercedes. You see them line up. I don't know how they used to be buying these vehicles on opposition salary. I don't know how they used to do that, but right? I don't plan to go and I ain't going and buy no big car. Not me. I ain't nothing that. I have a very nice vehicle right now, right? It's in good working condition. It's a high-end vehicle and it's in good working condition. So, yeah. So, let me get this here. Give me 1 second there, Brian. Brian.
Good afternoon.
Greetings.
You better go and upgrade your vehicle and don't study nobody. Don't play those things. Go and upgrade your vehicle, brother.
But if they say you don't reach and you gotta buy big car.
I know business. You go and upgrade your vehicle. Buy something real nice for yourself. You drive around for a Spain posh. You don't have to study nobody. But I spoke this morning on the barbershop about that. Because the first thing that good afternoon to you, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
And good afternoon to your listeners and callers. Dominic, I spoke about this morning on the barbershop. I told John Benoit. I said the first thing they did was to do what? All the plan that they had was to go and do what? Send Kennedy Swanson to go and borrow money. Borrow. They had no plan to raise revenue. So he went to the United States and asked for money.
Yes.
And when he was asked some time back, when he came back, well, what did you go to these states for? Well, I want to talk to the World Bank and the IDB, and we want to really borrow $2 to $3 billion over the next 3 to 5 years. He can't tell you the exact figure he went to ask for. You can't go to a bank, as you well know, Dominic, and say, I can get $2 or $3,000 borrowed. That's what I'm doing. You can't go and talk that kind of thing. So he went for a specific amount, but he cannot tell the people. And the first thing they did was calculate how much back pay they're going to get, and they put it in and they appropriated it.
Yep.
So now the deficit now for this fiscal gone up to $10 billion. And it does not include the money for the people whose backs they rode on to get into office, the public officers.
That's right.
It doesn't include it. So therefore, if they're going into the new budget in the next 3 months with a deficit of close to $10 billion, and as Mr. Thomas said on Thursday, that they're expecting to hear in the new budget, next budget, what's going to be, how they're going to get it, when they're going to get the money. Where they're getting it from, Tony? If you're borrowing already, you're in office 2 good months, but you're borrowing. You're borrowing money to pay all your back pay. All your back pay, you know. That money that all they didn't want. That's all they borrowed with Dr. Rowdy about. And Canada now gets in. You understand? And the rest of them. But you now have to go and bring a budget in 3 months. And you have public officers who every minute of the day living on 2013 salary. Yeah, you know, what about that today? That's a one. On 2013 salary, and the poor and the suffering, and they can't feed their family and fill it with, you can't hear a word. So then we didn't get money to started at 10%. Well, you say you have heard something different. But let's assume, let me go at what we on the outside here hearing. 10%. You get any additional $10 billion from to pay that back pay. And then I'll talk about recurrent expenditure, because you have to find money to pay salaries that's going to go up. But over 90,000 plus public officers. People are studying this. So therefore, the deficit now will go to how much? Over $20 billion. Where you get any money from? If you're borrowing for $3.14 billion, and you have to raise another $10 billion to pay public officers increases and back pay, where you getting that money from? Where you getting the revenue from to do that? And people not asking themselves because everybody vexed with the pay. I vexed with Rowley, and we ain't wanted to secure him because we ain't want Churchill to be Prime Minister. Totishness. And look at where we are today. So instead of fighting from the inside, you're fighting from the outside when you have no power. You're fighting from the outside when you have no power. And look at us today. Look at it's being thrown down our throat, the economic crash, because they're setting up the people, Dominic, they're setting up the people. They give them an excuse as to why they can't pay the 10% plus. I want to see if they're doing that, where they get any money from. Kamala Prasad Mutesa went long twice about when Thursday. She tell them when they're going to get any money? No. I love you. I love you. That's putting money, that's putting food in the pocket. What Rosie have to say? Nothing. Police Thomas going to tell them, don't worry, it's coming. And they're telling them in the parliament, all straight, we just come. But for the last 10 years, 9 years and months, you want me money now? You're living up, we're suffering, people suffering, public officers suffering, we're dying, we've seen trouble, we can't say we're trying to school, we can't buy books, we can't do this, we can't do that. But today, oh Lord, today is oh Lord. When they get Kamala Prasad sets up, Office of the Prime Minister, $128 million, and she working from home. I want to ask, well, what that money for? $3 million is for the St. Mary's Children's Home. So what the rest for? And you working from home, you only come in for the space for cabinet meeting and for parliament. So you're using up gas. So what that money for? For stationery? That would fit in your house as Office of the Prime Minister? What that money for? One position. One portfolio getting $128 million. And people in Tobago, and the lady in Tobago, what's her name, Petronella, what her name is, talking about, but they have to reduce the demand on the government. When they were telling Dr. Roy they want 6.8%, but all of a sudden now she could take 5.1%. Because the government, all of a sudden the government they had no money. So when Dr. Rowley was there a few months ago, he had the money. But today, Kamala go and tell them, well, we have no money, they could take a little less. Yeah, no problem. Anti-camps, no problem, we could take less. And everybody running with that. Revenue Authority going through. You know why? Because they want to make sure that the doctors and the attorneys don't continue not to pay taxes. That is why, Dominic, that is why crime could never stop. Because somebody has to make money. And that's the guy in cash. But the Revenue Authority would have got all of that online and people would have had to pay the fair share. Businesses would have had to pay their fair share, but oh no, they have to protect the businesses and the friends and the financiers. Look at the Airbnb case today. Look at the Airbnb, that's dead in the water. It's as dead as a doornail. That will not come to pass. The $1 billion we're supposed to get from Ferguson, dead. Because you have an Attorney General who only watching across our church. I wonder why you're only watching church so. You're only watching church and talking about war and this and that and church. Wait to see how it's church so. Huh? Wait to see only watching church so. So you have something with church, I wonder. Huh? Your contribution has nothing to do with the appropriation, with the addition to the budget, the fiscal budget. When you're talking about war and this and that and the other, and white-collar crime. White-collar crime right behind your back, and you will say a word about that. When you're talking about white-collar crime, and you will deal with white-collar crime. What white-collar crime are you going to deal with? And these are some of the things. And then you have a felon speaker who only making excuses on their behalf and interjected in a way that Emma had to tell him he cannot do. And he's insisting he will do. He's making explanations for the government. That is all wrong. It is all wrong. But then again, you see, when you don't vote, and you look for excuses not to vote, while PNM people looking for excuses not to vote, UNC people looking for excuses to vote. And that is where we are today. I had to listen to a man on a particular frequency on the radio telling me he bossed him. He didn't vote because he only had one MRI machine in Mokto. And he's happy to come out and say that. So that's the reason he voted. So when 2030 come out, still only have one MRI machine, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? When you're running down Shell, talk about Manatee because they have no plan to raise money, to raise revenue. They want Manatee to come on stream. You go to hold a meeting with Shell to ask them how long again before they start to get first gas, start to send first gas? Because they have no plan to raise revenue. And we all know they're going to run into problems. And when they run into those problems, because the public servants are going to want their money, they're going to have to do what? They got to devalue. And when they devalue, what's going to happen? You're going to get downgraded. And that is the trend of things that's going to happen, and there's more to it. But there's not much time for me. I'll just say that and thank you very much for the opportunity. But there's a lot more to talk about. But you see, we look for that revive wholesale because I keep telling some of my friends, we look for a reason not to vote. And we should be looking for reasons to vote. We spoke at Novia Manure program, telling people, oh, look, go out and vote. Tell the people, go out and vote. Spend half an hour. It is for a good reason. Now today, you have this to face, and it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. Are you not going to pay the price, Dominic? All of we. All of us. If people believe that UNC will prosper, the UNC voters will prosper too, they too will suffer. But it's not just PNM, but all of us will suffer. benefit. Because those who are supposed to be before the court, all those matters will come to naught. And we will get no money from all of these matters that Dr. Rowley and Stuart Young fought hard to bring to the fore. And all that they did, all the work that was done beforehand, will all come to naught. All because we have a bunch of people there who never had a plan. We have a Minister of Homeland Security who have a clue what to do. This idea of doing better in the police is putting more boots on the ground. How shameful. How shameful. No idea. They have no idea how to raise revenue. So we would have to bite the bullet when it comes. And it's coming sooner rather than later. Brian Manning spoke about it. Com Ember spoke about it. Good luck to them. As Com Ember said. But at the end of the day, we will all have to face it. And it will be a sad day in this country. All the best to you, Dominic. Have a good day. Good luck tomorrow, my friend.
Yes.
I hope you are successful, and I hope you win tomorrow. You have my vote. Have a good day.
Thank you. Hello.
Dominic.
Hi, Zina.
I just happened to be on YouTube and see you. Anyway, I'm happy I did so. When I see it, I shared it wrong one time.
Thank you.
A few people well to tune in. I want to say good luck tomorrow. I'll be voting for you and a lot of other people, independent, I am afraid to say. So, I hope you all would be successful. Before I make the point I want to ask you, when next you come on, I want you to tell us something about that money, that US dollar that is going to, if it's what I'm reading and it's not AI story, about the dollar that Trump say is within a month, that's going to change to some kind of coin. You heard it? You heard the news on it? Right, so I wanted to tell us what really that is about and how will that affect us here, Trinidad and Tobago, if that has to happen very soon. Right, but I want to say this morning, I am so heartbroken of what has transpired. But thank God tomorrow is election and the time is nigh, because what they didn't want for what Dr. Rowley said he would put he had put it for down September. They didn't want that. And they come and do the same thing that they say he didn't want, that they call the election. They come and calling it now. But we will see what transpire, but I don't have a good feeling about it. I'm not staying home and leaving it alone. We're going out and make an effort so that at least we could say we have tried. Okay?
Yes.
I'm calling on people. All those like myself who say you all weren't going to vote, go out and vote. Vote wisely, you all know what to do. As far as I can see, me looking at no slate. Right? Know what we have to do. Only go out and vote wisely and make a contribution so that if we want change, that a change can come. Dominic, that's all I have to say today. So after we will the election, we will black.
Nice.
But don't forget, check on that money, the US, this coin thing that so and the change that he gave them a certain like is a month. And he say all those who went go along with this crypto coin that their countries will not be trading with them. So I want you to check on it. Make sure that it's truthful story, because so much lies coming out on this thing now and so much you don't know what to believe. So thank you, and you have a good one, and tomorrow best of luck.
Thank you.
Right. All right.
Jasodra, let me just respond to Jasodra here, who's saying that to ask why the PNM people didn't come out to vote. We in the PNM, we take ownership of our loss, right? You see, unlike the UNC when they lost in 2015 and 2020, we didn't blame the EDC. We didn't blame the chief elections officer and say, well, she related to this one and that one. We didn't say the reason why the PNM lost is because UNC supporters chose to vote race. We didn't come and say it's because we accepted responsibility for the outcome on April 28th. Decisions were made in the last few months that did not sit well with PNM supporters, right? The issue of the pay raise that was for parliamentarians and others, for the 900 and something public servants who fall under the remit of the Salaries Review Commission, that did not sit well with PNM supporters. The issue of the pensions bill, where there was the clause, that controversial clause about if you have $25,000 or more in savings that you wouldn't qualify for the pension, even though the clause was removed and the bill subsequently lapsed. The UNC capitalized on that. Those were the things that persons were upset about. The difference between PNM supporters and UNC supporters is when PNM supporters upset with the government, with their PNM government in power, they register that discontent by not voting. We saw it in 2010 in Arima, when it is the people wanted Penny Beckles, and Mr. Manning insisted he put in Laurel Lezama there. And the people of Arima say, so, well, we're going to show you. We tell you that we want Penny Beckles. You want to give us Laurel? You keep Laurel. We're not voting. What did they do? They withheld their vote. And the UNC was able to get Arima. Penny went to La Hoqueta Talparo to screen for there, and she was rejected for there too. And the people say, so, really? Well, all right. We will teach you a lesson. We in charge. You might be the head of the government, but when we tell you all who we want and you insist you will give us who you want, we will show you. What did they do? They withheld their vote. And again, the UNC won. PNM people took chain up. We hear about Call the Hat Thief and Call the Hat Thief. UNC put up big billboards with Call the Hat and Mr. Manning standing next to a pile of money. They put up big billboards with Mr. Manning in army fatigue, likening him to Idi Amin. All of that. PNM people took chain up. Mr. Manning spent $30 million or whatever it is to build a church in Guanapo for his spiritual advisor, Juliana Pena. All that stupid talk. They took chain up. The people in South, Mr. Manning building the smelter to diversify the economy. The UNC said, no smelter, they'll get cancer and dead. They say, all right, people, let's sell. Know all about. Manning insists. People withhold their vote. When PNM people upset with the leadership of the PNM, they don't vote. They withhold their vote. They don't vote for the other side, no. They don't vote. When UNC supporters, all you could be how vexed with Kamala. When election come along, all you go in and vote for her come hell or high water. No matter, she could do all what she want. That's why in 2015, on the night of the election, when she left her campaign office in Siparia, realizing that she had lost, and left you all stranded in Rionzi complex, looking for comfort, looking for consolation, as is the norm with a political leader. When you lose the election, you console your supporters. She didn't do that. She jumped in her car and gone home and left all there in the lurch in Rienzi complex, porting like some poor me one with all crocodile chairs. She didn't care to console her, tell her all her tale, and gone home. Man, you all kept the faith with her. You lost in 2020. They come and give you all kind of excuses because in 2015 when they lost, they tell us because of email gate, it's because of the 1 hour extension, it's because the chief elections officer was Maxi Coffee niece, all kind of stupid talk. They never took ownership of that loss. They never accepted the reason why they lost. They blame everybody else and everything else except themselves for the corruption that took place and that turned off people. 3 years after they came into office in 2013, January, they lost the THA election 12-1. June, they came and they lost the Shoguanas West by-election to Jack Warner. They came and they lost the St. Joseph by-election, Terrence Dale win. And then they came again with the local government election and they lost that too. They went from 11 corporations to 5. All of that happened in the space of 3 years of them coming into office. And supporters like you all refused to accept the fact that they fell out of favor with the population because it was too much corruption. You had people like Makandal Daga. 11 months after they came into office, he was a part of that administration. He was the ambassador to CARICOM, getting on a public platform and saying in his 50, 60 years, he never sees so much thieving in all his life. People are stealing money like they invented it, like they have a right to thief. He was a part of that administration. And these are the things that turn people off from them 3 years after they came into office. But you all refuse to accept that. It's because of email gate and it's because Rowley and the PNM. They never did any sort of introspection to assess why they lost the election. Come in 2020, they lost the election again. And they give all kind of excuse. The election was rigged, the PNM thief the election, and they didn't bring, that's why Rory didn't bring up observers, because they know there's going to thief election. And again, all bought that hook, line, and sinker. It had nothing to do with their poor performance. It had nothing to do with the revelations of corruption that the then PNM administration had presented to the population. No, it had nothing to do with that. It's the PNM thief the election. Well, this time around, they brought observers, right? They brought observers this time. They couldn't help it in 2020 because when they reached out for the observers, because the borders were closed, it would have cost too much money for them to charter a plane to come because there were no commercial flights. But when PNM people upset with the PNM and the leadership of the PNM, they register their discontent by not voting. UNC supporters, you all don't do that. You all are upholders of wrongdoing, and you will continue to support the wrongdoers come hell or high water. And that is why Prasad Bisasa is Prime Minister today, because any other political leader losing 2 consecutive general elections, losing consecutive local government elections, she would have been gone long time. Long time. Patrick Manning didn't wait. Bossy throat, he gone. That is how it works. But no, that's the problem. That's why the PNM people didn't come out. They were upset, and again, they take chin up. So Kamala spent all the things they talk about, UNC talk about high crime, high cost of living. What else they talked about? The corruption, they talk all of them kind of things. Yeah, the state of the economy crash. That did not resonate, even with their own supporters. Kamala Persad-Bissessar got about 413 more votes in 2025 than she got in 2020. She has close to 30,000 eligible voters in her constituency, and she was only able to get about 13,900 votes. 13,900 votes. The PNM got just under 3,000. So there are about 14,000 persons in her constituency who didn't come out to vote. They didn't buy her rhetoric. She's the great leader of the UNC, and they didn't come and support her. Munilal got about, what, an additional 590-something votes. He too, normally is all kind of 18 and 19,000 votes they get in. He didn't get much increase. So all this talk about high crime and the high cost of living and the economy crash and all that choppy talk that they were given, even their own supporters didn't buy into the rhetoric and come out in numbers like they did in 2010, when they got over 450-something thousand votes. This time around, they get 350-something, and that is because when you add in the coalition of interests, where they get from the PEP and the unions and so on, they were able to secure that. But the arguments this time around wasn't as convincing as 2010, right? So just remember, you all won the election because we needed 15,080 more votes to win, and we didn't get it across 9 constituencies. Understanding across those 9 constituencies, we have the support to be able to win back those seats. The support is there because they didn't vote for the UNC. They didn't vote for us, but they didn't vote for the UNC, so they are there waiting for us to do what we need to do to win back their support and their confidence, and we will work very hard to do that. All right? So all this talk about all the BDP and convincing victory, nonsense. Nonsense. All we needed, we got 224,000, we needed 240,000 to remain in government. We all had 350-something thousand. And if we had gotten that additional 15 who stayed home, with your 358 or 360,000 votes, you all would have still been in opposition. Just remember that. Jenny.
Hi. Romain.
Hi.
And all those who are locked on and tuning in to start with something. And that's a good starting point for me, although that's not where I was going to start. And I want to ask you kindly that I take back for my time.
Yes. Proceed.
Okay. That is why tomorrow it is very important that people go out and vote wisely. Because you see a couple of things, and I do concur with that with where the PNM is concerned and when PNM people are upset. But part of the reason why they are upset or were upset is because they were not getting information. They were seeing things happening and nobody was explaining to them. For example, the SRC. Had that been explained to PNM people properly, or even to the country properly, they may have understood. And the simple thing was this, that the SRC was constitutionally formed, and that they are the ones who, based on the Constitution, they are the ones who look at over 900 plus senior public officers. They could have many public officers and all parliamentarians. and that in 2013, that same SRC came with an increase in salaries when Kamala Persad-Bissessar was the Prime Minister, and she wrong them basically. She said that figure is too disrespectful. She was supported by Congress on the opposition side. And they came back afterwards, this revised salary increase from 2013. Dr. Rowley just ended up being the one, for whatever reason, he accepted it. So when he accepted it, the increases didn't go to Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley alone. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, Saddam Hussein, and all the parliamentarians, whether it's upper house or lower house, and 900 plus senior public officers were also recipients of the increase in salaries. And once they got the increase in salaries, it meant that they changed the pension payment when they retired. But that wasn't transmitted to people. And who to blame for that? They were persons in the PNM, a part of the central executive, whose job was to inform members and people on the whole about what's happening, and that is the main, and what you always used to be saying it. The machinery of the PNM to get messages out is not functioning, was not functioning, and the political leader, the Honorable Senator Beckers Robinson, she would have said that officers, she didn't say members of parliament, she said officers would have fallen down on the job. And I would be brave enough to say I think those officers may have been the SMO, social media officer, the PRO, public relations officer, the education officer, and those who were in charge of disseminating information. So I stand by saying again, tomorrow, you will have a chance to go and change that. You know, Dominic Romain can do the job. He has been doing it in an unofficial capacity. If it wasn't for Dominic Romain and factor stubborn things and pages like debunking UNC lies with truth or facts and other persons who are on social media, the People's National Movement may have lost this election by losing lots more of the seats. But it's because people getting the information, because the machinery, the communication machinery of the People's National Movement, not the government, the People's National Movement, the political party was not working. So you'll have a chance this time around to go and vote for people on the executive who will get the information out there to the 41 constituency and keep us abreast of what is happening in the country, political and otherwise, so that when it's time to make an informed decision to vote, whether it's at the local government election or the next general election, whenever it is called, we have the information. So even though we may not be pleased with the candidate they may choose, we have enough information to say, you know what, at the end of the day, it is about the People's National Movement getting back into office. Once people have the information, they will change the way they do things, but they lack in the information, and then they give them somebody they don't want, and they say, all right. That's what it's about. And that situation in Arima there's conversation that the person who Arima wanted, when they didn't get chosen, and somebody else put, they went about in a campaign, a no-vote campaign. So sometimes, when the person who wanted to get chosen and didn't get chosen, and to somebody else put there, instead of working with the person who the PNM would have put there to show solidarity, because at the end of the day, it is about country. They work against them, so that too is also a factor that creates confusion in the mind of the PNM voters. So don't discount those areas there. So I hope that going forward, the political leader, the guy has been cast away that country, she is the political leader of People's National Movement. Me, as I see somebody show on Twitter, because I say who not to vote for, and it's like dictatorship, I can't tell people to vote for. So I can. Nobody has to take my instructions, and that's why I call democracy, because you could say who you want to vote for, you're free to do that, and I could say who I think people should vote for. That is my choice also, but that is called democracy, because the one PNC, they're not going around and telling people to vote for them and not vote for the independents. So are you going to call that dictatorship? Or is it democracy? That they can say who not to vote for? We could also say who not to vote for. We could also say who to vote for, just as they do. So understand democracy and understand the difference between democracy and dictatorship. And quickly to the 10%. As my comrade concern hopefully is the same. Public officers need to understand something. The period that the 6% was offered, 2014 to 16 and 17 to 19, was a period where no union could assure the government could have paid more than 4%. But not only that, there was a settlement of negotiation for public officers for the period 14, 15, and 16. Duke told us that and Duke refused to accept it. Because by then, Duke was getting himself busy into the politics. Because he became the employer when he became the minority leader. And subsequent to that, he formed his political party. So he didn't want the government to look good. Because he was forming the party, he wanted to have bacchanal and confusion because he hoping the public officer would be so irate they would vote for the PDP. So there was no settlement or anything. And then after those 3 years passed, we had 17, 19, and we had COVID-19. Nothing was done either because he was a politician. He became the employer. He was no longer the employee because as a union leader, you are an employee. You are the executive. And you take the directive from the members who pay the money. How that directive comes? It comes through General Council, where it is made up of different sections who stand there, people to represent them. So their voices are heard. And through the highest body, the council. That is how it works. But when a union leader and the executive get involved in politics, they become the employer. And the employer is not going to take the side of the employee. So look, that's where we are right now. Felicia Thomas and they get WASA. That's what they was interested in. I have no problem with that. They represented WASA and they represented well. But she is a contracted worker from WASA, so they get WASA. WASA is no longer going to be structured. Leroy Batista was telling people the conversation out there is that he was going to be a UNC senator if they win, and subsequent to that, the Minister of Labor. Well, he got that. So they have no interest in public servants because they never understood the public service. So they have no need to go negotiate because the first thing Felicia is supposed to be doing now is go in the industrial court and take our matter out of the industrial court and prepare to go back in front of the CPO whenever a directive is given to the CPO by the Minister of Finance to restart negotiations. But not only that, as Constance said, what period was that before? Because they don't settle for 6 years. So she has to go back and settle 14, 15, 16. At what percent? Are they going to start at 10% for that period? And if they start at 10% for 14, 15, 16, when it comes to 17, 18, 19, you can't start at 10 again. Because inflation would have gone up. So what they're going to start at 12% now? And when you finish that, you have 20, 21, 22, and a year in 23. What you're going to start that negotiation at, you can't start at 10% again. You have to keep going higher. So that is why economists were saying it is unrealistic to start any negotiation so high because you can't go low. You have to keep going higher. So now I'm hearing that Felicia is saying we will get our money in the budget coming. How will we get that in the budget when the Minister of Finance already indicated that we're in an economic crisis? Where are we going to get the money from? Is it, I just asked him, they're going to bring out the cut notes? And if that is what they're going to do, it was alleged. What will that do for the reputation and image of Trinidad and Tobago who signed on for the factor bill? The world going to watch us and say that we in league with money launderers and human traffickers and white collar crime. I'm asking a question. So if they don't give us the 10% and they give us law now, what period are they giving us law? If public officers going to sit back comfortable and say, well, they're not in the country now money, that's what you're going to do. Because then you know what? That's only they take the last 4% for the 6 years and the 5% so 20, 21, 22, 23. Because you know what? We're going to be 9% because when you add it together, we're going to be back paying decent salaries and we'll be sitting easy. So the new period, 2023, 24, 25, in the absence of that, don't matter what you want to come with, especially for less than 4%, we lost. We will get to nothing. I just want to leave it there again and to tell people tomorrow you have an opportunity to go out and reset. Let the resetting of the People's National Movement start from tomorrow. Go out there, get the right executives in place to start to do the work of the people so that we'll get the information and the PNM will start a bill and let this hate stop. Because the only people pushing the hate, in my opinion, is the one team. Because every time they go out and they go out to talk to the people, all they're doing is pulling down Dr. T. Christopher. They're not mentioning his name, but we know who they're talking about. You cannot want to build trust and love and continue to pull down a man who stood in defense of this country for 40-something years through COVID-19, through a recession. And instead of leaving it there because he has left the politics, or they continue to drag him and talk about humility. I want to tell our political leader, I have nothing against us. You see, the parliament is not for silence, the parliament is for talk. Because part of the parliament, you know, the word is for talk. Inside there, we have discourse and you talk. And they're not for silence and humility. That's when they go to talk to members outside. You see inside there? And I want to congratulate you, MP Romain, because when you stood up and speak, especially on financial issues, it's like if it's butter running off the way. You know why? You have to do this all the time. So the material, the subject matter is familiar to you. So you don't need to think about what to say. You don't have it there. And I see more and more of that will come up because you're both on other topics. So I know that you'll do your constituents well. And I hope the other young MPs also will also learn the subject matter and also stand up, because right now we have a 13-member team and our political leader decides she's not running after every car that's fought, and she's going to humility and silence. Silence is golden until it becomes albatross from your neck. You have to understand the strategy for silence. You don't just talk silence just so. You have to understand when it's time to talk and in the parliament to talk. So I want to wish you all well, all, especially you, Dominic. You know where my heart is. You know I always have my support, no matter what nobody say, how they say, what I say, whether you have my support. Tomorrow is a time to reset and get the proper central executive to work, to do the work of the people. And I'll finally end by this one. People might say controversial. That's okay. When you see comes to the Women's League, where to empower women, not just these women, other women to bring them in, because the Women's League have a history to speak to Mrs. Marion Gordon about the history of the Women's League. You'll understand how vital it is. It's a part of heartbeat of the PNM, because they're the women who used to go out and canvass. They're the women who will take care of the children. They are the women who will take care of the party and make sure things are done in the right way. You can't do it without a Women's League. And you need to carry on the work of Ms. Fisher, Ms. Marengo, and all those that came down up to Mrs. Camille Robinson Rachel. That work has to carry on. And I'm telling you, the best person there to carry on that work is Ms. Donna Cox. Ms. Donna Cox. I'm leaving it there. I'm left it like this. Have a blessed evening or afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, Jenny. Let's see here. Probably take maybe 1 or 2 more calls. Let me get this here. Let me get this here. Hello, good afternoon.
Dominic,
Oh Lord, leave it there.
what's going on?
All is well.
Look at boy.
Leave it there. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Since good evening. Hey Dominic, my sister called me from New York and told me how she listened to you and Pastor Ruger chatting.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta find the link.
Okay.
Dominic,
Leave it there. What back
I hear you talk about Lizama leasing. Dominic,
Mm-hmm.
she had a private matter in the court.
Mm-hmm.
She told Dr. Rowley not to let her go because of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
He still let her go. So he can slip his hands with Dennis in the Senate and all that. And nobody else say a word.
Oh Lord, oh Lord.
No answer. Dennis saying he don't want to step down because it wasn't a THA election. and nobody is saying a word. He couldn't help with 2 seats in Tobago, but now he say he don't want to step down. You see why people just get vexed with the PNM?
I could ask you a question.
But anyways, my boy, you can ask me anything.
Kamala Persad-Bissessar lost the 2015 election. She lost the 2020 election. Why she didn't step down?
Dominic,
And she's prime minister
you
today.
see Kamala let go anybody?
If she let go anybody,
Monilal, David Lee, you see she let go any of them?
yeah. Where is Rudy?
against-
Where is Rudy?
all against-
Where is
all
Rudy
against-
Indar Singh? Where is Rudy Indar Singh, the former member of parliament for Kuva South? Where is he? What did he do? Where is Jayanti Lakshmi Dayal, who was in the Senate? Where is she?
Dominic,
Nowhere.
that is low. What did I say? What all you say? That is low hanging fruit.
Ah, okay. That is low hanging fruit.
Low
All right.
hanging fruit.
Okay.
Talk about Monilal.
Where is Anal Ram?
Them inside is still
Where is Anal Ram?
low hanging fruit.
Really? In 2020, Persad-Bissessar put her head out on the chopping block because that same Anal Ram was fired from 2 public utilities companies and she still take him. That is not low hanging fruit. So he was good in 2020 and he wasn't good in 2025.
That the one was in the bus company.
No. That is the one who was fired from TSTT with the $3 million, the bucket trucks that he bought. That wasn't suited. And the company that he gave the contract to, when TSTT tell them they had to pay back the money and they said they can't afford to pay it back and they go pay them back in increments over a period of time and all of that, he was fired from TSTT and fired from TNTech.
All of them is low hanging fruit. I don't take on them.
Really? That was low
I
hanging
just study
fruit?
Monilal,
Oh,
David Lee.
Mhm.
All of them were on top there.
Uh-huh.
Right now, yeah, Dominic, let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
You really think Kamala forget when Roger was pulling the mannequin?
Of course not.
All right, let me leave it here.
All right. But don't worry, more mannequin coming soon. So again, let me answer Jasodra, who is saying that we say that UNC thief and nobody got locked up. Jasodra, you know that is par for the course. In 2015 and 2010, all they said called a hard thief. Called a hard never see police. Called a hard never put on silver bracelets. The police never questioned Called a hard, despite the UNC told us Called a hard thief billions and billions of dollars. Called a hard was engaged in bid rigging. He gave contract to his brother-in-law who was on the board of Sunway Construction. All they tell me he thief billions. Called a hard make a jail. You all told us a man by the name of Uttara Rao, EMBD thief billions. Uttara Rao jumped on a plane and went back home to India. He get locked up. Did they use Interpol? Did they try to extradite him back to Trinidad to face charges? No. All they tell us, Keith Rowley thief material from the Scarborough Hospital to build land it. You all remember that? Keith Rowley make a jail? You all seem to forget that. All they say, O'Halloran thief, Privat thief, either of these 2 men ever make a jail? So talking now about they say who thief and nobody make a jail. Anand Ramlogan is still before the courts. The only reason why he and Ramdeen got away in that matter with respect to kickbacks is because Vincent Nelson refused to testify. Right? The DPP would have gone through the evidence and charged these men based on the evidence. They were before the courts, and the DPP unfortunately had to rest the case because the main witness say he not testifying until he get the money that was owed to him for briefs that he would have gotten under the People's Partnership. He wanted money when he thought he was going on dead from cancer, right? He didn't want to go to hell. He didn't want to meet his maker with that on the conscience. So he decided, they didn't ask him. He came to the government to offer information, you know. He came, they didn't contact him. And then when it is that his cancer went into remission and he realized he still has some time on earth to make amends, all of a sudden he went back to his old ways. But you will learn, you don't play with God. Right? God will not be mocked. Not when you figure on your deathbed and you don't want to risk it. You know what it have on the other side. You decide you're contrite and now you want to confess. That is the only reason why. But Mr. Ramlogan is still before the courts of the witness tampering case where he stands accused of trying to get David West to withdraw a witness statement in a matter, a lawsuit involving himself and Dr. Rowley, meaning Ram Logan and Dr. Rowley. And the witness statement of Mr. West was very damning, because when you read the witness statement, it gives information that causes one to pause and think, why Ish Galbaransing and Steve Ferguson were not extradited? The details that Mr. West gives in that statement, talking about instructions that he would have gotten from the then Attorney General in his capacity as the competent authority, that where they were on the cusp of extraditing these men, and the then Attorney General took a decision not to proceed. It was damning. Unfortunately, it's no longer available on the internet, I guess, because the case is still very live, and so you can't have that information out there. But Mr. West gives one, when you read that, you will understand why Mr. Ram Logan would have been so willing to risk it, to risk his reputation, to risk his freedom, to get that witness statement withdrawn. So he still has a matter before the court. Mr. Gerald Ramdeen and Mr. Varun Debedine, two UNC attorneys who stand accused of copying and pasting witness statements to defraud the state, you, the taxpayer, millions of dollars, falsifying witness statements, falsifying statements of prisoners who claiming that they were beaten by prison officers and police officers. Now, when the master of the court looked at it and realized what was happening and brought it to the attention of the DPP said, just taking a preliminary glance, a cursory glance, he is of the unflinching view that a crime was committed. Even before the police investigate, the DPP was ready to lay charges. That case, that matter has been under investigation since 2014. We are now in 2025. 11 years now, the police investigating that. They said in 2014, October, the then senior officer, ASP Dinoon, said, well, here what? We are about to wrap up the investigation. All we have to do now is to question Mr. Ramdeen and Mr. Debedine, and then we will make a decision to approach the DPP on whether or not to lay charges. That was since 2014. 11 years now, they still yet to question Debedine and Ramdeen. 11 years. So when people do get jailed, that had nothing to do with the government. The Prime Minister can't pick up the phone and tell the Chief Justice, you need to hurry up and deal with this case and lock up these people. It is for the judiciary to deal with. And when these matters are heard, look how long Ram Logan get charged for that witness tampering. That happened under the People's Partnership. And then these men know how to drag these things to the court. So he challenged on the basis that the judge who granted the warrant to the police to be able to access his phone records to see that, yes, he did in fact call David West on the dates that David West said he called. He is saying that the judge, Gillian Lucky, had a bias against him, and therefore that is why she granted the warrant for the police to get the records, his phone records. And the court's still trying to decide on that. So people not getting locked up don't mean they didn't commit the crime. It's just the way the judicial system in Trinidad and Tobago works. Unfortunately, the higher up the ladder you are, you know, it appears the law seems to favor you a little more. But if you're a small man, they lost your backside in remand. But that is how it works. All right? So, folks, there's just one more quick thing I wanted to touch on before I leave. Again, to remind you all, tomorrow is the election. The polls open at 8, and I think they close at 5 or 6. Right? So it's just to find out where your polling station is. Again, for the constituency of Malabar Mausika, it is the Red House at the corner of Banyan Boulevard and Alamanda Street, right? Same street with the Malabar police station, right? So the building is on the right-hand side, and the Malabar police station is just a little way higher up the road. So if you're coming to vote in that constituency, that is where the polling station is going to be tomorrow, right? For persons asking, my constituency office is now open. As I told you before, I had a little delay in terms of staffing, right? Because you want to get the right people. Being in opposition, it's important you have the right staff. Yeah, I'm not just about hiring people for the sake of hiring, but I need people who are resourceful, because we're going to need resourcefulness over the course of the next 5 years to be able to deliver to the people of Malabar Mausika. Fortunately, I've used the opportunities of Parliament to have conversations, brief conversations with some of the more critical ministers with respect to getting things done in my constituency. There's a bridge in Samaru village that requires attention, immediate attention for the longest while. So I've spoken to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure. So we are in the process of arranging for her to come and for us to do a tour of the constituency to look at some of the main infrastructural works that need to be done. I've also spoken with the Minister of Public Utilities, as there are some recreational facilities in Malabar Mausika that require lighting and so on. And so I need his attention, his urgent attention to that. So he asked me to just send him a letter requesting, and he will address it. I also would have had a brief conversation with the Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs, because there's a recreation ground in Karapo that during campaigning I was asked to treat with, right? Because there was some work being done there since under Anne Roberts, and it was dug up and it wasn't completed. So they would like that addressed. So I intend to take care of that with that minister as well. I also spoke to Khadija Amini, Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. There's some issues in the constituency that fall under her remit, and so she also lives in the constituency. So I intend to work with her as well to address those those issues. Okay, so my office is open Monday to Friday, well, Monday to Wednesday, 8 to 4. Thursday for now is supposed to be my office day when I will be seeing constituents. We didn't have any last week because of the holiday. This Thursday might present a little bit of a challenge because of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association is having a training session for parliamentarians, which is on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of the coming week. And the Speaker has asked that the new members of Parliament attend Wednesday and Thursday, right? Because it is training really in parliamentary practice and other matters. And so he made a special appeal for the new members in particular of the Parliament to attend those two sessions on Wednesday and Thursday. So if that's the case and I have to attend, I would not be able to have my constituency day this week. But however, we do intend to offer virtual appointments where you will be able, we could chat via Zoom. If it is I can meet you in the office. Also, that's the key for persons who may be shut-ins, person who might have disabilities and it's difficult for them to get around. Transport is a cost. We can chat via the social media platform. We'll use Zoom, or perhaps if you have access to WhatsApp video calls, we could treat with that as well. So, and one last issue. So this book caused a bit of consternation and a bit of confusion recently, right? Which is Dr. Rowley's biography. How did I come to be in possession of this book? So I went to Balize House a couple of weeks ago to collect the membership list for my constituency for the election. While I was there, the General Secretary, as I was about to leave, came out of his office and he told me, hold on, he's conducting a little exercise with the new members of Parliament. So he has a book for me, right? And so we went to the gift shop, if you want to call it that, in Balize House. For those of you who are familiar with the new Balize House, as you go into the lobby on the left-hand side, there's the gift shop there where they have all kind of PNM paraphernalia. Among them, they have books. So I was given the choice of one book out of 4. This was one. The other 3 books were Mr. Manning's book, Ferdy Ferreira's book, and a book, one of Dr. Eric Williams' book. So I was told I would be given one book for free. Which book would I like? And I chose this book. All right. So then I was asked to take a photo. And I was given the choice. Do you want to take the photo with this book, or do you want to take the photo with one of the other books? And I said, since I am taking this book home, right, and I have it to read and it's not mine, I will take the picture with Mr. Manning's book, since I am not taking home Mr. Manning's book. Okay? And that is how come I ended up taking the photo with Mr. Manning's book. But I was given the choice to take the photo with any one of the 4 books that was offered to me, which included this. As I said, because I was taking this book home, that's how come I ended up taking the photo with Mr. Manning's book. So I hope that clears up any misconception with respect to that whole situation, that whole scenario. There was nothing untoward. That is what happened. The choice of book was mine. I did offer to purchase Mr. Manning's book, but Mr. Cummings at the time did not have the price of the book, so he told me he would inquire and get back to me. And once he does so, I will purchase Mr. Manning's book. Right. So that is what happened there. Right. So let me see. Radiant Myrtle Salem is saying a message but no response. Just a couple of questions. Where was that message? Where did you message Radiant? Was it here, or did you send your, or did you message here? Message the WhatsApp, the 7701763 number. So D. Boss Constantine is saying it's not the book, it's the post that was written with the photo. Duly noted, duly noted. But I saw some persons were asking why I didn't take the picture with Dr. Rowley's book. So I thought I would address that. I mean, if the write-up, you know, I wasn't responsible for the write-up, so I can't speak to that. You're most welcome, Jennifer. Good luck. Jasodra is asking, how come you're asking the UNC minister for help? Go ask the PNM minister. Jasodra, I don't know if you got the memo. There are no PNM ministers, right? When the PNM lost the election on the 28th of April, and the EBC declared the results, and the UNC was declared the winner, all PNM ministers ceased to be ministers. When the swearing-in took place on the 3rd of May at the President's house, all UNC persons who were sworn in are now ministers. There are no longer any PNM ministers. What we have is PNM members of Parliament. Okay? And the persons who are now ministers, they have the responsibility for the next 5 years to manage their ministries for the benefit of all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. All, as Khadija loves to say. Not just UNC, all the citizens. Because the revenue that they would be using to provide services belongs to all the citizens, not just you UNC supporters. Okay? So that is why I have to go to them, because they are the ministers. They control the ministries, they control the resources to be able to get things done. When you're in opposition, you can do precious little, other than write and request. If we had power in opposition, we would do what we need to do for ourselves. But that is just the way the system works. Okay? So when the UNC MPs were telling you all between 2015 to 2025 that they can't do nothing and they ain't get no money and they get the support, we never told you all, well, why didn't go tell them, or why didn't go to the UNC ministers? There are no PNM ministers. Okay? We are just members of Parliament. That's about it. When our constituents come to me for help, and my constituents are PNM, UNC, Patriotic Front. So when the UNC supporters and the UNC voters come to me as the member of Parliament for help, what should I tell them? What should I tell them? Yellow is the code. Go and talk to the UNC. I am the MP. That is my responsibility. I am responsible for over 28,000 voters. And beyond that, I am also responsible for those who are not yet eligible to vote. So to the tens of thousands of persons who live in Malabar Mausaka for at least the next 5 years, I am the person they have to come to regardless of their political affiliation. Okay? So when you say, why we don't go to the PNM ministers? There are no PNM ministers. And I'm certain you would not like me to tell you and the 7,400 and something people who voted for the UNC in my constituency, when they come to me for help, to say to them, yellow is the code, go and ask Kamla, go and ask Munilal. I don't have the facility anywhere at all to tell them that. Same services I would provide to the PNM supporters is the very same service that I intend to provide to the UNC supporters. And when the road fix in Samaru Village, it have PNM living in Samaru Village, UNC people living in Samaru Village, all of them benefited. So I am fixing the road for PNM alone. It's for the UNC supporters who use it as well. When the recreational grounds are lit up, the UNC people go in and play ball and play sports and utilize the facilities in the same way the PNM supporters going to do. Okay? So that's how it works. We work for the betterment of the constituency for all constituents, all residents, and not just for those who voted for us. So I hope you understand that. Folks, thank you all so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure. As I said, I kind of lost the zeal. So I did it today because tomorrow is the election, and I have to be up and down the place making sure everything in our gear for the election tomorrow. So I wouldn't be able to come on tomorrow. And so I took the opportunity today to do this so that just to encourage those of you who are still on the fence, have two minds as to whether or not you're going to vote tomorrow. Once you are a member, you have a party card, even if you're not even if your dues are not paid up, you're still entitled to vote. All right? They waived the requirement for you to be financial in order to vote. And just a word to the UNC supporters, PNM people, we have to pay dues every year. $120 every year. It's 100,200 of us. So multiply that by $120. So when all they want to know where we get the money from to build Balize house, understand where it came from, right? When we had an initiative called Buy a Brick, and we asked each of our supporters to buy one brick is about $5 or less. So if we have 100,200 supporters, if 10,000 or 20,000 of them buy one brick, that's 20,000 blocks to build Balize house. If we ask them to contribute one bag of cement per member, right? Do the math. So we don't need to thief no money to build Balize house. Okay? We didn't thief. Our members support the party. And that is why we have to listen to our members when they talk to us. Gone are the days when the leadership, and you never did that. Right? But just letting you all know. We don't play that. It happened under Mr. Manning, and Mr. Manning learned a hard lesson. Hard lesson. And like the party didn't learn a lesson. Our supporters could learn a thing or two from the UNC supporters of how to support our party. Let me just take this here. 1 second there, Jen. Jenny. Hello? Yeah.
I just want to ask a question because I want some clarification.
Mm-hmm.
When people vote tomorrow, when will we know who won the election?
From what I understand, it should be by Monday.
By when?
By Monday.
On Monday, so that knowledge will be made public.
Yes, a press conference will be held by
because I was kind of concerned because the same conversation is that the conference, then they will say who win or something like that, and that's like some days later. So
Yeah, because what happened?
I'm comfortable with that. I hope we would know by it. Okay.
Yeah, what would have happened last time? Yeah, the election committee would hold a press conference and make the announcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, again, people go out and vote resoundingly for Dominic Romain. They always saying he should have the SMO. Well, they get all the opportunity now, right? We expect Monday when they're reading out that is Dominic Romain MP is the SMO. And me personally, I would like to hear Donna Cox as the lady vice chair. And please look at the independent list, and choose from there. Choose from there. Have plenty of people who show that the willingness they give up on PNM. If that augurs well to show so many people choose to come and put up themselves. So don't be disheartened. There's not only just one team. I don't know if I want PNM and 2 PNM and 3. I know it's PNM. But there's an independent group of persons not affiliated to each other independently. So that tells you the PNM is well aligned and we just have to get it right. Look at the independent list people and vote resoundingly from there. I go.
Thanks, Jen. Just so that they send you for me today, no? You say what Rowley was helping the 1%. Just so let me ask you a question. In 2010 to 2015, when the UNC People's Partnership was giving away prime real estate in Chagaramas, Who was doing that? The man who got the 35 acres of land in Chagaramas to build the water park for $3,800 a month when the state valuator said he should have been paying $500,000 a month. Who did that? It wasn't Keith Rowley. Who gave away one of the mega farms in Tucker Valley to a member of the 1% to plant onions for export. And today, instead of onions, you have a thriving you have a thriving restaurant on the lot. Who did that? That wasn't Keith Rowley didn't do that. Who leased out the Chagaramas Convention Center for millions of dollars, again, to the 1%? Keith Rowley didn't do that. You know what Keith Rowley did? Keith Rowley took it back and he converted it into a youth apprenticeship center that was under the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, and that was supposed to provide opportunities for the youth to be able to gain valuable skills training in a number of different areas. Remember, they was complaining about when TTHTI shut down, a private institution that used to benefit from government subsidies. Well, the government is planning to offer those same courses and stuff in those facilities. You could take a drive down there today and whenever you have time, and you will see. I don't know if the government is going to keep it as a youth apprenticeship center or if they're probably going to take down that sign and lease it to one of their friends, family, or financiers to establish some other business there. Okay? It wasn't the PNM that gave out 15 land leases in Chagaramas, despite the fact that the population, citizens of this country came together across the political divide, UNC, PNM, all over ILP, march from Chagaramas all the way to the waterfront where the parliament was at that time to protest the state giving away lands, prime real estate for peppercorn rates to members of the 1%. All right? Who was it that just established for the second time the largest cabinet in this country's history, created a number of new ministries, which very soon are going to have to rent buildings to house these ministries? Who building you think they're going to rent? Ask a silly question. Is the 1%? All the buildings in Port of Spain, who own it? The 1%. You know how many empty buildings that have in Port of Spain over the last 8 years because Keith Rowley and the PNM decided to build their own facilities, state-owned, to put ministries and state departments in so that they wouldn't and state agencies in their own buildings so they wouldn't have to pay rent to the 1%. But Kamala come and create a whole set of new Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Homeland Security, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Science, of Tertiary Education, all these new ministries that we didn't need for the last 10 years. But she come now, we need it. Where you feel these new ministries going? They're going to pitch a tent on the pavement on Frederick Street? They're going to pitch a tent in Woodford Square? No, they're going to rent buildings from the same 1%. The buildings that Keith Rowley and they abandoned in the last 10 years. They're going to now come and rent it. So Issa Nicholas, who hasn't received 1 penny in rent for that blue glass building at the bottom of Abercrombie Street and Independence Square, which used to house customs, for the last 8 to 9 years, that building has had a sign at the front stating for rent. I would know. I pass there almost every day on the way to my office. That building is currently unoccupied. Give it 6 months. Give it 6 months and you will see. And I'll come back here and I will show you who really want to make the rich richer. All right? I'm going to take this last call here because I got to leave. I got to go. Eric, make it quick.
Noon, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Good afternoon to all of you. Well, today, and I just walk down about the Bibles. I am seeing a post circulated on social media, right, stating that the internal election for the People's National Movement is being postponed, and there's a new date to be announced on Monday. People, PNM people, do not fall for these rhetorics because it have persons who want to suppress the voter turnout come tomorrow, right? They want to suppress it. So my advice to you all, and I will piggyback on what Jenny said, you all go out, just what I'm going to do. We vote resoundingly for this member of parliament from Malabar Mosika and your new incoming social media officer, the Honorable Dominic Romain, right? When you go out and support this individual, he is going to bring the facts to the people. Go out and support all the independent candidates, Donna Cox and Maxine Richards, you name it. Go out and support them. Don't follow this misinformation, fake news that is being perpetuated in social media right now, right? Because there are people operators want to suppress, right? Dominic, before I go, get your friend a call, you know your friend who lives at Rosade, get your call, so you're going to answer something.
All right.
I think you know the person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good program. Love to listen.
Thank you. And with that, I take my leave for today, folks. Always a pleasure to chat with you guys. So until next time. So we have Parliament again on Monday, 10:30 a.m. We continue the debate that was suspended on Wednesday, the debate into the supplementation bill. The UNC is asking for an additional $3.1 billion. Yeah, 7 weeks, $3.1 billion. So I'm supposed to be speaking on Monday. So we will see how that goes. So remember, I'm offering myself for the position of social media officer. So when you go out tomorrow, social media officer, there are 5 of us contesting that position. The most number of persons contesting a position. Yeah, so social media is the most hotly contested. So as I said, there are 15 posts up for grabs, 51 persons. You're not obligated to vote for all 15. If there is a particular post that you're not sure, you don't know any of the contenders, you don't know who to vote for, well, I can tell you. I'm not going to tell you all who to vote for, who not to vote for. All right? Because of the unique position that I'm in, I don't, if I wasn't a member of parliament, I would have tell all you who to or suggest. But I could tell you to vote for me. All right? So that's as much as I could do. But choose wisely. There's nothing wrong with voting for independence. I am running independently. I deliberately chose. I didn't want to be on any slate. I don't support slate. I've never supported slate. I've told you all why I don't support slate. There's the whole slate thing that caused me to lose in 2022. So take a look at some of the independent candidates as well. Right? A lot of them have good ideas, a lot to offer. And so if you want to hear from some of them, you could visit Pastor Google's podcast on YouTube, Constructive Talk with Pastor Google, and you would see several episodes. You could choose which one, and he would have interviewed quite a few of the of candidates, independents, as well as some from the 1 PNM slate. And the 1 PNM slate would have also had meetings, so you could go and listen to the contributions of some of the members as well. So familiarize yourself with some of the people. Make the best choice, and please come out in your numbers. We don't want the UNC to be laughing at the PNM and say, hey, they have 100,000 members and only 6,000 people come out. And when the UNC have an internal election, they have 13 and 14,000 people, and the PNM and a mess, and the PNM gone through. Come now, man. We already have in the parliament to deal with the fatigue about in 2012, in 2010, we had a small maxi. Now we're going back to a small maxi, but we're using the conductor seat because there's 13 of us. All that kind of chopper talk they'll be throwing at us in the parliament. Saddam, what it was called, Dominic, what time the maxi coming for here? That kind of chop. We don't need that. Don't give them no further to make no fun of the PNM more than they've already done. As I said, they're looking for distraction and they're going to jump on that bandwagon. So please, I know some of you all disgruntled, but if you're a member, you have your membership card. As I said, you don't have to be financial. If you didn't pay your dues in a little while, you could still come out tomorrow, cast your ballot. I don't know where all of the polling stations are, but if you're familiar with a party group or so on, become a member, somebody in your constituency executive, they would know where your polling stations are, and you could go and cast your ballot. As I said, the polls open at 8, and I think they close at 5 or 6 o'clock, so you have a lot of time to go and do your civic duty. Radiant is asking, how could I get a list of the independents? I will post it on the page, the Facebook page, when I come off. Yeah, so you'll be able to see it. Yeah. G-Doll Queen, oh Lord, why are you so? I was talking to that individual a couple of days ago, and let me tell you, it was such a distraction between the toupee and the makeup. Oh Lord, it was, yeah, it was. Thank you so much, Brenda. Brenda Smart. So I said I'm supposed to be speaking again, Brenda, on Monday, and I'm a lot more prepared this time for them. All right, so don't miss it. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, folks. I trust that it's been a good one so far. If you're going out on the black carpet, take your time. I saw a terrible accident took place, was it yesterday? The individual who murdered the prison officer met Karma just a little way down the road and trying to escape. Car got into an accident and he found himself in the middle of the road. And today he is awaiting an autopsy at the Forensic Science Center. Yeah, you took a life and your life was lost, forfeit, soon thereafter. So sometimes karma works pretty quick. Yeah. What's my views on Stuart Young from getting 87,000? Tell us from a patriotic person, not a PNM. Right, so let me tell you something. Stuart Young is not getting any pension, nor is Kamala Persad at this time. So what Stuart Young gets paid is his salary as a member of parliament, and whatever is the difference to get to the 87,000 is what he is paid. Stuart Young and other MPs like myself, we pay taxes, contrary to popular belief. Now I sit in the hot seat and I can speak from an empirical standpoint. We pay income tax, we pay NIS, we pay health surcharge. All of those things we pay. All right? And I would know that when we were paid last month, all of those things came out. So all who like to say they sit down in parliament and they get in tax-free salaries. No, we don't. We pay all of those things. Okay? The only thing we get tax exemptions from, based on our compensation package, we are allowed to purchase one vehicle every 2 years, and we get a tax exemption. If we purchase more than one vehicle, we are only allowed the exemption on one vehicle. Okay? The other one, if it's within that 2-year period, you are required to pay all associated taxes. No exemption. Title 2(1). That's the only tax exemption. Everything else, we pay income tax, we pay NIS, and we pay health surcharge. Okay? So I just put in that out there for the uninformed. Now, as former Prime Minister Stuart Young, based on the current law, that is the law, the Pensions Act, he is entitled to, as the former Prime Minister, whether he served for 1 day or as he did, he would have served for about a month and a half, he is entitled to a salary equivalent to that of the Prime Minister because he served as a Prime Minister. All right? It is not Stuart Young's fault that he only served as Prime Minister for a month and a half. If the good people of the People's National Movement, the supporters, had come out and done what we asked them to do, Stuart Young would still be the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago today. Stuart Young didn't do anything to oust himself as Prime Minister. The citizens, the supporters of the PNM did that. Okay? And, yeah, well, I wouldn't really say the UNC. The UNC people came out and they did what they had to do. They listened to their leader and they voted. Our supporters, tons of thousands of them, chose to withhold their vote. And as a result of that, Stuart Young is not the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago today. Not of his own doing. So I don't think Stuart Young should be punished for something that he did not bring upon himself. And let's talk about Stuart Young wasn't elected as Prime Minister. We do not elect a Prime Minister. You elect a party. When you go to the polls, you are given a ballot to vote for your member of parliament. That's it. That's the only ballot you get. The only position you vote for is the person that you want to sit in parliament and to represent your needs and to represent your voice and your position. That's the only person you vote for. There are no ballots. There was no ballot. When I went to the polling station, I did not receive a ballot with Kamla Persad-Bissessa's name, Stuart Young's name, Michaela Pandey's name, Gary Griffith's name, or the names of any of the other political leaders of any of the other parties that contested, and asked me to put my X next to any of those names as to who I would like to be the prime minister. I was not given a ballot. I don't know if any of you all got that ballot, but I didn't get any ballot to vote for a prime minister. All right? I got a ballot to vote for myself as the member of parliament for Malaba Mausika. That's it. You do not vote for prime minister. The only people who decide who will become the prime minister and who become the opposition leader are the persons, the 41 people who sit in the parliament. So in the same way, Penny Beckles became opposition leader because a minimum of 7, the majority of parliamentarians on the opposition side, supported her and made that indication to the president. It is the same way that the UNC MPs would have had to sign a letter to send to the president indicating that they support Kamla Persad-Bissessa to be the prime minister. Any one of the 26 of them after the election could have been prime minister, unless and until that letter was signed and sent to the president indicating that all 25 plus Kamla are in favor of Kamla being prime minister. The president could not call on Mrs. Persad-Bissessa to be prime minister. She could only call on who the 26 people say they supported. We do not vote for a prime minister. We vote for MPs who belong to a particular party. And the party that gets the majority of MPs would be invited to form the government, but the MPs must indicate to the president who they support, who they're throwing the support behind. So if anytime later on down the road, there are 26, if 14 members of the opposition decide that they're fed up with Kamla and they don't want her to be the prime minister anymore, all they have to do is to pen a letter and the 14 of them sign and send it to the president stating we no longer support Kamla Persad-Bissessa as prime minister. For prime minister, we support Barry Padarat, we support Rudal Munilal, and the president will have no choice but to appoint that person as prime minister. That is how it works. Okay, so I hope Caribbean Soul understands how it works. So I have no issue with Stuart Young receiving the salary that the law says he is entitled to. The law says that. Not Stuart Young, not anybody else. The law. The members of parliament sat down and they put that together and they agreed to that. Those members of parliament who were there when that became the law, they made that decision. Stuart Young didn't make that decision. So I have no issues with him receiving what the law says he's entitled to. And unless and until the law changes, it is what it is. Whether or not they can change the law to make it retroactive, to say, well, I don't think they could do that. They could probably amend the law going forward so that anybody else who finds themselves in a situation similar to what Stuart Young found himself in would not be entitled to, and they would state how much that person is entitled to. But until that happens, so I'm seeing he says here, but they want amendment, the time a PM spent in office to be eligible. Well, the UNC have tabled a bill, an amendment to change the law for that purpose. So be it. I just hope that should, God forbid, anything happen to Mrs. Persad-Bissessa before general election for 2030, anybody else should have to replace her, right? That take note of what you all want to do now and understand that you too will be impacted by that. All right? I'm not wishing any bad on Ms. Persad-Bissessa, but I see her in the parliament, right? I see her close up every time we go to parliament. All right? So I'm saying, if God forbid anything should happen to her and she's no longer able to serve in that capacity, whether it be 1 month or 2 months before the election, and they decide they go in the full gamut and somebody has to be appointed prime minister to act until the election is called, understand, right? That when all they think this is a PNM thing, this is not a PNM thing. This is not a PNM thing. And the people who made that law know why they made it. So whether the person served for 1 month, 2 months, 1 day, 10 days, again, Stuart Chung did not vote himself out. He served that period of time because PNM people didn't come out and support. Plain and simple. So don't penalize the man because we didn't do what we were supposed to do. Our supporters didn't do what they were supposed to do to give him 5 years. Okay? And I wonder if it had gone the other way and if Penny had won the vote in Tobago and she was Prime Minister, whether you all would have been saying the same thing. Probably not. Let's see. All right, so let me tell you again. Maybe you don't understand, Caribbean Soul, how the process works. Stuart Chung didn't select me for anything. Okay? The former Member of Parliament for Davidiomera, now Malaba Mausika Lisa Morris Julian, unfortunately perished in a fire on December 16th, 2024. The constituency was without a Member of Parliament. When the PNM called for nominees, persons to be screened for the position of candidate, 7 persons went before the screening committee. I was one of 7 persons. All right? It wasn't just me. 7 of us screened on that night. And I was selected. And the decision as to who the candidate would be was a decision taken by the screening committee, which comprised 9 people. 9, not 1. 9 people sat in a room and deliberated over the 7 people who presented themselves for screening, and a decision, those 9 people made a decision to choose Dominic Romain out of the 7, not Stuart Chung. Stuart Chung did not select me. Okay? So get all your facts straight now before you come here and talk rubbish. All right? 6 of them wasn't diehard. Do you know who the other 6 were? One of them was Councillor Jenny Scott, PNM Councillor Jenny Scott, who is serving her 2nd term as a councillor on the Arima Borough Corporation. I was no councillor. I was just doing work here on social media, and I was a radio talk show host. Janice has been a member, has been a councillor, and you want to talk about diehard PNM? The other people were serving on the constituency executive of Davidiomera. I was not no constituency executive. They were serving on that constituency executive for the last for at least 4 years under Lisa Morris Julian. They were doing more in the constituency than I was. All I was doing was representing the party here on social media. What crazy this you're talking about diehard PNM, more diehard PNM. I was more diehard PNM than them. Caribbean Soul, if you don't know what you're talking about, stop digging a hole now. You're just digging a deeper and deeper hole. Rubbish. Rubbish. Come now, man. I was only 1 party group nominated me. There were other persons of the 7 who received several nominations, 5, 6, 10 nominations from various party groups. I received 1 nomination from my party group number 1 of Davidiomera, Malaba Mausika. 1 nomination. Several of the others received more nominations than me. I thought, but I was more diehard than them. Come on now, man. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh boy. Folks, let me go here because this man will draw me in here and keep me here for another hour, and I really have stuff to go and do. All right, look at the time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, folks. We will chat again. I'll see what the only day I may have available next week is Tuesday. Because I said Wednesday, Tuesday, I have the training, parliamentary training. And then next week, Sunday, 29th, is the convention. So I'll see what I can do on Tuesday. If not, we chat when we chat. So have a good one.